See, all I heard, all I read was Chris can't tell time, and I'm not judging. It's fine, you know stuff I don't. And if you don't, you can make great music, and if you can't tell the time, it's fine.
Well, there is that aspect as well. Yes, I can't tell time apparently. So
I am so exhausted. I'm
you?
moving house.
Yeah. I see you're in a different room than usual.
Well, I'm in one of those virtual backdrops because
that actually looks pretty real. Oh yeah, I see the little shimmering around you now. Yeah,
you can see the crappy matte lines. Just because I'm like, there's nothing behind me. I'm on a makeshift desk. Everything's been packed up.
Yeah.
I was supposed to record with John Fouts on Thursday, just gone.
Okay.
And poor old John's not feeling well, so he said, we'll have to record next week. I'm like, no, we can't record next week. I'm doing something that I've never done before, and I don't know how you've done it, but I will have no internet for a month.
So I wanted to ask you about that. So I get being out of internet for a little bit when you move. Like usually there's like a few days between, maybe it's easier to cut it a little early than, and whatever. But why a month? Like, how did that work out?
Well, we're with Virgin Media at the minute. Okay. And I contacted them saying, hey, we want to cancel from next week. And they're like, oh, no problem, but we're going to charge you a lot of extra money. I'm like, why? Because you've not given 30 days notice. So I'm like, okay, I'll give 30 days notice then. They went, all right, then we won't charge you this big pile of extra money. I'm like, brilliant. So I'm moving out of the house that I'm in within the next couple of days. So we're probably talking about the 9th, 10th of December.
Yeah.
And I signed up with Sky a week ago going, I want a Sky package. And the earliest they can install due to a shortage of engineers is the 10th of January. So I've increased like the data goodie bag on my smartphone, which will be fine for emails and all that sort of stuff. Because it gives me 20 gig worth of data, which is fine for emails. Mm-hmm. Not so much for video podcasting, though. I do suspect the 20 gig would disappear pretty quickly to start doing a podcast a week. So, no.
Wow, man. Yeah, that's I mean, whatever. It's like, the ultimate first world problem, right?
I'm quite looking forward to it, though.
It's not a bad thing.
I'm quite looking forward to it, to the point where I won't feel the need to go on Facebook and see what everybody's mad about, or
it'll
obviously,
be like you'll really think every time you whip out your phone to kind of do something internet related, you'll be like, is this worth my data?
Yes. So I've been downloading, I'll make sure all the music is downloaded, all the podcasts are up to date on my iPods. Yes, I do still use an iPod. People nowadays go, do you still use one of those? Wow. I'm like, have they really gone? They seem to. They don't make them anymore.
Yeah, I have my I still have 2 iPod Classics with like the the 30-pin adapter. I love the old iPods. Right. And they still work actually. The one kind of stopped working for like I forget what it was. If it would only play music through like the left earphone for whatever reason. So they were still semi plentiful at the time, so I was able to get one used on eBay that I still have, and once in a while I take it out and use it. It's tough to, I can't necessarily sync music to it anymore because it doesn't play with iTunes or Apple Music as it exists now, but all the music that's on there is still on there and it's still playable, so it's kind of cool.
So what do you use for your music listing device when you're out? Is it your phone? You just download?
Phone. Yeah. I always make sure that I get the phone with the largest amount of memory. I'm not, so I get a phone every couple of years when my contract comes up for renewal, like a lot of people. Like, I don't care about the newest, greatest phone anymore because what I use phones for is so minimal. Apple can talk about, I use iPhones, and Apple can talk about, oh, it does this and that and all this other crap. I'm like, I'm not going to use any of that. Yeah. All I care about, like, does it have a semi-decent camera that I use mostly really for work? And does it have a lot of space? Because I have a lot of music, and that's what I care about. So
how do you choose what music goes on, or do you just revolve it? I tend to with my iPod because it's only, I think it's like a 16 gigger, and I have to revolve it going, well, I'm going to put these albums on, I'm going to take those albums off, and I'll just
for the most part, all my music goes on it. And I have, honestly, I don't even remember the last time I checked. I've got to have probably over 20,000 songs.
Wow.
and as you know, based on the music I make, a lot of the music is all the songs are fairly long, so that I listen to as well. So it takes up a lot of space, but for the most part, I'll keep all my music on there. But lately, since the iPhones have been able to do more in terms of like you can play like games on them that are actually good, like Resident Evil 4 and stuff like that. I've started selecting like, okay, do I really need like the entire discography of this one band that like I don't even listen to that much anymore? No, I really don't. So I can axe like 20 albums right there, you know, and so trying to make room maybe for like a video game here and there. But beyond that, yeah, I try to keep everything on there just because I never know what I'm going to feel like listening to. So
it's like, who is this? Who is this? Aenorex? Aenorex? Oh yeah, that's me.
Well, you know, it's funny with Aenorex because there's so much music beyond what I've written and released. There's a lot of music that has never been released, like alternate versions of like all these songs. So you can pick any one song, and there's probably between 5 and 10 alternate versions of that song that like were worked on and kind of leading up to the version I ended up releasing. But I kept them because I like to sort of sometimes I'll listen back and go, oh, I can kind of chart how I sort of molded the song from there and how it sort of evolved from there. Yeah. And sometimes there's some really good ideas that don't end up getting used in like an earlier version of a song that maybe I'll use for another song. So it's like, I don't know, it's like posterity, you know. I keep
you don't. Yeah, I've got all the podcasts going back to episode 1. Right. And half of these aren't even online, and I've gone back and listened to some of them. I'm like, why did I ever release that? Because you sort of progress, and hopefully you get better, and you put new things in and all that sort of stuff. But I do make sure that I've kept everything. I have backups and whatnot.
Yeah. So Aenorex takes up a large portion actually, just because there's like, you know, so many different versions of all these songs, and then not to mention all the like all those samples and stuff I cut into the music, all the old audio samples and stuff. I find all that stuff myself. I've spent, I don't know how many dozens and dozens of hours just finding and cutting all those samples, and I keep all that saved as well. And I know which ones I've used and which ones I haven't and all that. So it takes up room, man. It really takes up room. So
I was looking at my hard drive the other day at the Mimi stuff, and I'm like, let me just right click and go properties. How much is that? Oh my God, that's a lot of space on my computer. So I'm definitely, maybe on this internet down month that I'm having, it'll be things like start this project, start that project. Because we do spend a lot. I know we're talking over the internet now, but this is productive and educational for everybody.
It is.
But we do spend a lot of time on the internet. Just look at it. Absolute crap.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to Facebook. Which seems to be where most of it is now. It's bizarre. I kind of wish there was a counter that showed you how many hours you'd wasted each week just reading people's stupid statuses. It's a lot. I think it's definitely it's a lot.
You know, I'm looking forward to when you get your internet back and you're able to kind of, you know, take inventory of all the stuff you were able to get done during that month where you didn't have that, you know, that sort of go-to time sink of the internet. And you're gonna be like, wow, like I got a bunch of crap done just because I didn't, you know, you weren't spending. I'm not saying you live on the internet, 'cause I know you don't, but you're not gonna have that.
I used to.
You used to be. I think, you used to see.
I used to always be on it. Yeah. Now I'm like, I'm good. I'll check when I can.
So maybe this will be. Maybe this is like when the chain smoker gets sick and they can't smoke for like 2 weeks, and then when they go back to, you know, where they're not sick anymore and they just don't want to smoke as much, maybe this will be like that for you. It'll be like a forced sort of detox, right?
I remember a few years ago, you know how you look at how much money you've got coming in your house, and you look at the end and go, where did all that go? Because I haven't bought stuff. There's no iPads or PlayStations kicking around. What's going on? And I decided to make a little spreadsheet. And every time I went to the shop to buy snacks, I put how much I spent. Every time I went to like a takeaway or a McDonald's or something, I put that down. And then after 2 months, I looked at the totals. I'm like, holy crap, that's where all the money went. And it really did help me stop spending as much money on crap.
Yeah.
Because you look at it and you go, it's only $10 or $5 or whatever. But when you look at it after 3 months, it's like, that's $195 on takeaways. That's ridiculous. I need to stop that. So I do like to shock myself into stopping spending.
No, for sure. And that's I think even just doing that little exercise shows a desire to sort of improve your situation. Because for a lot of people, the idea of even starting something like that is scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, people who like spend very frivolously and then, it's not even just watching every dollar you spend, but people who just like have no concept of how much money they're actually spending. If they actually stop to think, like,
Yeah.
like I did something similar when I used to work for an old employer where, they employed a lot of people, and that was Walmart. I'll say it was Walmart. That's fine.
Yeah.
Everybody knows Walmart. And I worked for Walmart as a loss prevention manager. And every day I would be there, probably buy a drink or two, to get me through the day. I worked kind of long hours a lot of times. And it was a super center, so there's always food there. So if I was hungry, I could always get something to eat. Not that I always did, but, usually I was eating a lot of like Slim Jims and crap like that at the time. One day, after many years, I decided I'm going to run my associate discount history and see how much money I've actually spent in this store.
Yeah.
And the number was, and I didn't even buy a lot of stuff. Like maybe I'd buy a video game once in a while. I didn't like I'd buy cleaning products when I was there to clean my house, but that was like the most consistent thing I bought. But between drinks every day, some cleaning products maybe once every couple months, and then the odd movie or video game, it was absolutely astounding how much money I was spending. And I'm like, this is what I'm spending. The people I work with spend way more than me, because I see them buying stuff all the time. And it's like, that's scary, man. That's scary when like you have no concept of how much you're actually spending. And then when you see it all kind of in black and white,
freaks you out. I think a lot of people are like that with streaming platforms now. I know a lot of people who have got lots of streaming platforms. They've got Max, they've got Disney, they've got Netflix, they've got Amazon, and they go, it's only like $8.99 a month or whatever it is. And they go, for that $8.99, you get quite a lot. And that's true. It's a true phrase. But then it's like, yeah, but you've got like 4 or 5 or 6 of these things. Do you really watch that much TV? And I used to have probably about 4 or 5 streamers, and I dumped most of them, and now I revolve them. And I'll usually have
that's
2.
Smart. That's smart.
Oh, special offer. Quick. Disney for 3 months. Brilliant. I'm watching all the Disney stuff. Right. Let's dump them and go on to Paramount. And I'm spending maybe $15 a month on streaming platforms. And it's like, well, that's better than 35 or 40, which I used to spend.
Well, yeah. And I know we've talked about streamers before, but like it really has replaced the cable package. There was a brief window where people were like, oh, this is amazing. I don't, cut the cord and all that stuff. We don't have to subscribe to these ridiculous cable packages.
Too expensive.
9 million channels that we don't watch. Yeah. And it's like, hundreds of dollars every month or whatever. And then now we can just, cut the cord and pick what we want. Watch our Netflix, watch our Shudder, whatever. Yeah. But then, as more and more companies started wising up and started creating their own digital packages and streamers, like now it's like people are just spending the same amount of money again, having the exact same amount of content again. The only difference is they have more movies they can watch now. Yeah. But you still have the same amount of hours in a day, and you likely still have a similar job situation. So you're probably still only getting to watch the same amount of content every day.
Yep.
So yeah.
It was like I had. When everybody went crazy, went, oh, nobody can get an Xbox X. They're impossible to get. I managed, or even the S's were quite difficult at one point.
Sure.
And I managed to get an S. And I'm like, yay. I don't know why I bought one. I think I bought one because nobody could get one. And I've got one. And it came with Game Pass. And I signed up for Game Pass. And it was like $15 a month or whatever. And went very quickly. I realized I don't play enough video games to warrant paying. So I went online and I bought for, I think, about £11 or whatever, the entire Halo collection.
Yep.
And that lasted me like 4 months because of the amount of time I was playing video games. And I just never went back to Game Pass. So yes, if video gaming is your thing and that's all you do, you sleep, you work, you play video games, then it is worth it. But for me, no, I'm more into my physical media. Part of the stuff I was moving this morning were probably about 500-600 DVDs and Blu-rays. And that's what I'm going to be watching. Thankfully, they're not heavy. But I'm going to be watching those over the next month and putting them all out on shelves. And so I'm very excited about unboxing everything.
I think Game Pass and things like that are a good idea for people who just want to play a game. But like, I know we've talked about this before as well. The whole preservation side of it really bothers me. And games are really having a hard time right now because there's a lot of big games that aren't even getting physical releases anymore, or they get one like 6 months later. And it's like, this is freaking like Alan Wake 2 just got a physical release like a month ago. That game's been out for a year, and it was a critically acclaimed game. It's like, why is this happening? And I think things like Game Pass, a great deal as it is, it's really skewing people's perceptions of what it means to consume media. Same with Netflix, same with Spotify, same with all of them. It's taking away that ownership piece of it, to where we don't own anything, but we're still paying like similar amounts of money. So, and again, I don't want to beat a dead horse. I know we've talked about it, but I don't like that aspect of Game Pass. And I got it. I got Game Pass a few times, like usually when it was on a deal, and usually because it was going to have a game I wanted to play, and it would be ultimately cheaper. Because it was a game like, I didn't really care to own it, but I wanted to play it, and like it was actually cheaper just to get the Game Pass and try the game and then be done with it. I know I did that for Halo Infinite. They had some crazy deal going on a couple months ahead of that release, and then shocker, I ended up buying Halo Infinite anyway. I did it for Gears 5. Shocker, I ended up buying Gears 5 anyways. So yeah, I don't want to own everything, but if it's something that I could conceivably see myself wanting to play at some point in the future, just drop the money and own it. And
I'm the same with movies. It's like, if I'm going to watch this more than once or I really like it, then I want the physical disc. My favorite Blu-ray of the year is the Blair Witch Project from Second Sight. Stunning. There's apparently an issue with one of the sound mixes though, and I never noticed it when I watched it, because I'm not like, oh look. But they're doing not a recall, but they're doing hey, if you got one, email us and we'll send you a disc out in January. So I'll probably do that just to make sure I've got the perfect version. But I didn't really notice anything wrong with it. But still, my favorite set of year. It's gorgeous.
That happened with me with the original Criterion Blu-ray of Eraserhead. There was an issue, a visual issue with one of the scenes. Now I know Eraserhead pretty well, but I don't have every scene memorized. So when the issue happened, it was basically a shot where the whole screen went white. And I was thinking, oh, that's just David Lynch being weird. Like,
it's just David Lynch.
That's just David Lynch making a white screen. But actually, it was an error. So they actually ended up reaching out. I forget how I found out. A lot of times you have to be pretty connected to even find this stuff out. Like, if you don't follow a lot of this stuff, you're not going to know they're doing like a disc reissue. But I got a new disc from them. And then the same thing happened with 3 of the discs in the Friday the 13th box set. There's an error on... I want to say Jason Goes to Hell, I think Jason X, and Friday 3. And they were small issues. Nothing I really even noticed that much when I was watching it, but they Scream Factory or Shout Factory reissued discs. So that was nice. But, again, you have to kind of follow the stuff to even know that's happening.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that Blair Witch thing, man, that is a beautiful addition. It's nice. I didn't pre-order that because I'm not a big Blair Witch fan, but I did. I like actually, believe it or not, I like the newest one more. I haven't
seen that. That's on my list of films I have not seen. So
I know people seem to hate it. I actually really enjoyed it. I mean, the characters were whatever, but it's it's what you expect from 20-somethings, right? But I thought it was good, but no, I pre-ordered from Second Sight that Suspiria. I know we were talking about the last time, the Suspiria edition, which I know is out and some people have gotten. Unfortunately, I still have not received mine, so I'm hoping to get it at some point, maybe early next year. But equally beautiful edition. Second Sight, they know what they're doing, man.
They really do.
Really nice edition. They're expensive, but they're worth it, I think.
I think for me at one point, Arrow used to be the best. I'm like, it's an Arrow set, and then Arrow got bought out by another group over here. And they just seem to spit out the same titles. It's like, hey, this title that we did last year, now it's in 4K. And you're like, eh. And then Second Sight very quickly, in my opinion, took over with their limited editions and the sturdy packaging and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So
Arrow are good with... you only ever have a limited window to get them, but like some certain editions of their certain movies they'll put out like the collector's edition of it. So, for instance, this year they put out I think it was this year, they put out the collector's edition of Crimson Peak 4K.
Yeah.
Now, they had already put out a collector's edition of Crimson Peak Blu-ray like 2 years prior or whatever it was. I got that. It's essentially the exact same edition, but now with a 4K disc.
Yeah.
And they're never that expensive, which is the cool thing. Like, you can usually get them at a pretty decent price, but you only ever have like maybe the month leading up to the release and the month, maybe a couple weeks after, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
And then usually a few months later, they'll put out just a regular kind of vanilla edition of the disc. And those editions are nice. They really are. I did get the Crimson Peak one, but a lot of their, like, they just put out, what did they put out? Trick or Treat 4K. Nice slipcover, nice little booklet in there. Like, that was a reasonably good edition. But then they put out, they released Tomio, or Tomi, the Junji Ito manga made into a movie in the, I guess it was the 90s, really, maybe the early 2000s. I saw it years ago. They put that out on Blu-ray, since like everybody's like reading Junji Ito these days. And that was very bare bones. I mean, it's cool, it's out, but they could have done more with it, but they really didn't, you know. So,
but there are some good. I haven't really bought too many Blu-rays this year, but you know, hopefully I'll buy more next year. But it's been how's the year been for you? I know it's like 7th of December, so there's another like 3 weeks left yet or whatever. But how's the year been for you, creative wise and such?
Creative wise, I mean, you know, I was kind of picking away at music and stuff the first many months of the year. I don't know. I didn't feel, I wouldn't say I didn't feel inspired. I had started a new job at the end of last year with a new company. It's a job I know how to do, but it was with a new company. So kind of learning that company. And then in the end of April this year, I got a promotion to a different position within that company, a position I really wanted. So it was a lot with training and kind of, again, learning sort of the ins and outs and who I'm dealing with and stuff with this company. But so I feel like that took precedence over me working on music. And it needed to, I think, because I need to make sure I'm doing my job well. But now that I kind of fell into a bit more of a routine with this job, which is good. I feel less lost in the woods these days. So I feel like I've been able to kind of spend more time doing music again. So recently I've been very active with music and wrapping up a song and trying to spend all my free time editing. Like if Lydia's upstairs watching a movie or playing a video game or something, I'll just bring my computer up and work on editing music while she's doing that. So I'm always trying to work on music my downtime now. It's just been a lot of newness with the professional life, and then first half of the year I'd say spend a lot of time playing video games in my downtime, just as a way to kind of decompress from that. And then now I think we're seeing a ramp up in activity for music. So it's still a little ways to go, but I feel much better and like less of a loser, like I'm not doing anything. So how about yourself though? How's it been for you?
I think the first half of the year for me was okay. I think once July hit and I got struck down with the crazy illness, the rest of the year has just been like tough. It's not as tough now, but I think every day or two I'll get hit by this weird wave of either just feeling off or whatever it is. And I'm like, Annette, I'm having one of these weird waves. I'm going to go lie down for half an hour. And I do, and I get up, I'm fine. It's like today I've moved a crazy amount of stuff, multiple vans of furniture, physically fine. But yeah, later on I could sit down and watch TV and go, oh, feel awful. So it's very weird. But so my productivity's been not stagnant. It's been trickling at a steady-ish pace throughout the year. So not a lot of people noticed that I was doing a lot less than I would like to have done. Yeah. And they probably won't notice too much between now and the 10th of January that I seem to have dropped offline to a certain extent because I've preloaded a load of articles for the website to launch. I'll just jump online each day for half an hour and do tweets and Facebook. So nobody will even notice I've gone anyway, which is quite nice. But I'm just looking forward to a quieter, more productive 2025 because this year has been kind of insane with stuff. The good news is, though, in this house that I'm moving into, it's got two sitting rooms, 2 living rooms.
Nice.
And Annette's having one where she's going to kit it all out with all her Agatha Christie stuff because she's a big book reader. Nice. And we had this discussion last week going, do you really want a TV in your reading room? She's like, what do you mean? I said, well, you're going to make this room look like an old classic reading room, and it's filled with Agatha Christie stuff. Do you really want an LG TV site in there? She went, well, where would... And the other living room is going to be a screening room, so the video game consoles, the VR, the surround sound, the shelves with the DVDs and the Blu-rays. And I'm like, well, you want to watch something, just pop next door and watch it. So I'm going to have a designated screening room, which I'm very excited about.
That's awesome, man. It's so cool having those spare rooms to play with. Like for years, I always wanted to have a music room, like something actually like be dedicated to creating music. Because as a lot of musicians know, like, you're doing something that most people would judge as being noisy. So it's tough to find like a room that is not going to bother other people. And typically you end up, recording in your bedroom, or maybe you have a little spot in the living room where you can like have an amp set up or whatever. But I always wanted to have a room where I could just have music in there. And then when I moved into this place I'm in right now in Canada, it had, it's just Lydia and I. We don't have kids or anything, so it had a bedroom and it had 2 small bedrooms as well. So it's like 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath. So she was able to take the one room for like her office and library area, and then which ended up turning into her work area when she started doing more working from home. And then I was able to take the small room upstairs that was for music, which then now has also turned into a work area as well. So, during the week I have all my work stuff on my desk, and then once Friday hits, I swap all that out for all my music production stuff. So if I want to record on the weekend, I'm set up and ready to go. I feel blessed to have like this setup, and it's so cool that you're moving into a place where you can kind of have dedicated rooms like that. It's awesome.
Because we've been planning on moving for like a year and a half. So for at least a year and a half, most of my geek items have been in boxes. So it's like digging them out, and I'll be like, I've forgotten I even had this. So I'm looking forward to having, because I've got my own office upstairs as well in this new house, which will have a couple of computer desks and all that sort of stuff in it. So I'm looking forward to actually having a cool backdrop and, things that I can show off, and having a designated room that is podcasting room or a YouTube video filming room or all that sort of stuff. So it's, I'm looking forward to it.
It's always nice once you can finally get everything set up the way you want it. The slog getting to that point sucks. Packing and moving and multiple trips and going upstairs with boxes and furniture. Oh, it all sucks. But, and I've done it so many times in my life. I absolutely hate it. Hell, I even moved, across country at this point to another country, which was a fun experience. Packing up all my worldly possessions and driving it across the border. That was
that was you that did that in like one of these like U-Haul trucks or whatever the trip was it? You did
exactly
it that way.
What it was. It was a U-Haul truck. It was a mid-size U-Haul truck that ended up being way too big anyway, because I really didn't have that much stuff, but enough stuff to where I thought a small one might not make it. It was I believe it was 11.5 feet high. Yeah, I think that's what it was. But yeah, I drove it from, not like it was a huge distance. It was from Pennsylvania to Ottawa, Canada. But still, 6.5 hours driving this, for me was a massive truck, something I've never driven anything that big before. And then, having to import all my goods and stuff when I got to it was an interesting experience. And I came up for a weekend, unloaded everything into the house or the apartment Lydia had just kind of gotten for us in town. It was the same weekend she was moving all her stuff from like a couple kilometers away into this new place. We moved all of our crap in. That was I think that was like Friday, and then I stayed Saturday. We tried to unpack as much as we could, and I tried to get as many of the empty boxes out of there. Sunday I drove back to Pennsylvania with this truck because I had to bring the truck back.
Take it back.
Yeah. So I drove that back, and I remember 6.5 hours in the absolute pouring rain and darkness. It sucked. But you know what? The whole thing ended up costing me probably just over $1,000 or something between the rental and all the gas and everything. And to pay a team of people, or even a couple people to do that, it would have been thousands. So
we had that this week where we're like, do we just get a man with a van, as they call them, to do it all? But then you look at the cost, you look at the fact that the time scales narrowed down because they're like, you've got us for an afternoon. And then we ended up just renting a van privately, and then one of Annette's daughters just drove it, and we did 2 trips this morning for like £112, I think it was.
There you go.
And then Annette's other daughter is coming over tomorrow with a slightly smaller van to pick up the remainder of the crap that we've got, including this PC and my little desk and stuff like that. And then we'll be done. So we should be moved in by tomorrow evening. And then it's living in a house filled with boxes and tubs until we put things in their relevant places. So we're not quite at the end yet, but we're a matter of days away from.
The putting away of things and the arrangement of things, that's always the fun part for me. Especially after everything you've already gone through. It's the you have this whole blank canvas to work with, so it's kind of fun in that respect. As long as the setup of the house is good, and one of the things I was looking for whenever I move is like, what's the outlet situation look like?
Yeah.
I'd like, is there like one outlet in a huge room? That's going to be a problem because some of these places are older, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. I always do that. So where's the plugs? How many plugs are there? Right. Okay. But it's fun. It's tiring, but it's exciting.
Well, I'm excited for you. And I'm excited for you to be done. And I'm excited. The next time we do this, you'll be in a new area. So that's awesome.
I'll make sure the backdrop's somewhat respectable and stuff. So it's so I haven't really watched that many films in the past. I've watched a bunch of TV shows.
Yeah. What have you watched?
I've watched season 1 of The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, which I had not seen when it was on. Season 2's already out, but I've not seen season 2 yet. Season 1 was okay. I think it's I quite like The Walking Dead. I think it used to be better than it's become. Now it's kind of like a soap opera type thing. You're like, oh, let's see what they're up to this week or whatever. But season 1 I thought was good. Have you watched that? Where are you with The Walking Dead?
So I watched The Walking Dead. I did bail. I bailed pretty early, relatively early. I watched it when it came on, like everybody else, and did very well and all that stuff. My funny story about The Walking Dead is I went to a Monster Mania just after The Walking Dead premiered. And I remember Norman Reedus was there and Stephen Yeun was there. Yeah. And that was it. It was because it hadn't really blown up yet. Like it had good ratings, but Walking Dead fever had not yet hit, right? So I remember Norman Reedus had a decent sized line of people who wanted to get autographs. Stephen Yeun had like 2 people in his line. So I walked up to him and paid him like the $20 for, I don't know, a picture or whatever. And we were just chatting, and he's like, man, I really hope people like this show. Like, we put so much work into it. I hope it does well. And, like, it was just funny, like, flash forward 3 months, and the whole world is about The Walking Dead. And here's this, like, really nice young actor just being like, man, I hope people like it. I hope it does okay. Like, you did all right,
I think it's going to do fine. It should be okay. It'll be around for a few seasons, I think.
Yeah. But I do still have a picture of me and him somewhere. But anyway, yeah, I watched the first couple seasons, and honestly, I don't even remember which one I bailed out on now. I remember, crap. I was leading up to the one where, what's his name with the bat? Negan,
yeah.
When he kills Glenn, and
so that's like probably about 6 or 7, I think, season 6 or 7.
Would it be really that much? Okay.
I think so. Well, it was 2016 when I went to San Diego Comic-Con, and the whole cast were there, and I got to like chat with some of them. And Stephen Yeun and the other guy who got batted, I've forgotten his name.
Abraham? Was it Abraham? Was that his name on the show?
So when he got batted, they were there. They were there. And people were like, are you looking forward to next season? And they were both like, yeah, we're looking forward to next season. Because you didn't really know who'd been killed yet. And you wouldn't be able to tell they weren't coming back.
Yeah.
And,
they played their part well.
Reedus was there, and he had that rock star vibe when he walked.
Oh, he's very rock star.
He walked past me at one point. You could just see everybody going, "Oh my God, it's Norman Reedus." He had that vibe, and
he had the sunglasses on.
He had the sunglasses on, and the hair everywhere. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan had that same vibe where he's like,
he's cool.
He knows how cool he is.
Yeah, he is cool. Yeah.
So, and that was 2016.
I forget though if I watched. I think I watched the lead up to that sort of episode where, like that season finale with the bat or whatever, where he killed people or whatever. And then I think it was the next season like right at the beginning is when I dropped off because I didn't have cable at the time, so I'd buy the season passes for The Walking Dead through like iTunes.
Yeah.
So every year I'd spend $35 and watch The Walking Dead, and it wasn't that I didn't like The Walking Dead. A lot of people were like, fuck The Walking Dead, it's so dumb and it's like a soap opera, whatever. There's so many horror fans that were like, hating on it because it's fashionable to hate on things, but I actually liked it. I didn't mind it. I didn't like 100% of it, but I liked most of it enough to keep spending $35 a year to watch it. But the same thing happened with The Walking Dead that happened with, like, say, something like Bates Motel. I really loved Bates Motel. I thought it was great. I watched the first 3 seasons, did the exact same thing, bought the season passes, loved it. And as that show finally is starting to get really good, like, when it came back for the next season, I was just like, I don't really care. I don't care. And the same thing happened with Walking Dead. I never had any ill will towards The Walking Dead. I just was like, meh. And then I didn't like Fear the Walking Dead. I watched the first season of that. I did not like that at all.
I liked the idea of it. Because originally the idea was we're going to show what it's like when the outbreak happens. And I'm like, I'm into that. Stuff like The Purge and whatnot. It's like, let me show the chaos. And there's an episode of Daryl Dixon that does that. It goes back to the beginning and shows how it all goes crazy. And you're like, that's really good. But with Fear the Walking Dead, they kind of did that for like 2-3 episodes. And they went, now we forward to when the zombies are walking around. You're like, oh. So but I've already seen this show with different people. It's become The Walking Dead. So I haven't kept up with Fear the Walking Dead. And
I think with Fear the Walking Dead, I found the characters a lot less likable than Walking Dead base game Walking Dead. So but that's all right. Hey, not everything's for everybody, right? It just I heard that show got a lot better season 2 on.
I heard that.
But I just never went back to it. So
I'll watch it at some point, but there's too many shows. There's too many shows to catch up on. I've caught up with Cobra Kai now, so I'm up to date with that. That really is a stupid show, but I like it.
I hear the same thing from everybody. Like, it's a dumbass. It's like a dumb show, but like it's totally enjoyable. So
it's kind of like, so Chris, do you like Serbian film? Yes, I love it. I hate it. Right, let's have a karate fight. And it's just like, where's the police? There's no police in this town. So every episode it seems to break out into this big karate riot, and everybody knows karate. And you go, I get how stupid this show is, but it's half an hour long. I'm fine. It's not a. You're not going to feel bad after watching Cobra Kai. You're going to have a little bit of a smile on your face, and you go, it knows what it is. It's cheesy as hell, but if you like the Karate Kid, you'll be fine. So I'm up to date with that.
Help me with this. Did Cobra Kai start as like something else online?
YouTube.
Was it like it was YouTube, right? I think I saw the first thing on YouTube where it showed, like, was it Johnny? Was that the blonde guy?
Yeah.
Is that his name? Okay, I haven't watched Karate Kid in like decades, dude.
Yeah.
And Daniel, of course, we know Daniel's son. He seemed like more like a. I'm sorry, I'm really ignorant when it comes to this. I've never watched the show. And then when it came to Netflix, I'm like, well, that'll never do well. Like that won't last very long. And I'm very wrong. Yeah, it blew up. I'm like, that's kind of cool though, like. This childhood thing that so many people love now has been made relevant.
But yeah, the Cobra Kai thing does it very clever, because you watch the Karate Kid, and the Karate Kid's a hero. We like the Karate Kid, and Johnny's bad, and how dare you? And you watch Cobra Kai, and it's the other way around. You're like, actually, Johnny's a nice guy, Daniel's the dick. And then if you go back and watch the Karate Kid, you're like, Daniel is kind of a dick. Why did I not think of this way before? So they've done it very, very cleverly.
Yeah,
and it's coming to an end next year, and there's going to be a reboot, a sequel movie with Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio in it, with both the timelines. I don't know how that's going to work.
Is the other guy going to be in it as well?
I don't know if Johnny's going to be in it, but the Karate Kid from the 80s one's going to be in it, and the Mr. Miyagi, the Jackie Chan one from the Jaden Smith one. I don't think he's in it, but.
That's right. There was that other Karate Kid.
Yeah.
So wasn't that the joke where there was an actual karate being performed in that movie?
It's because Jackie Chan does Kung Fu, doesn't he? So it's like, they call it Karate Kid. There's none in it. So
Kung Fu Kid.
Yeah.
That's good.
So there's that.
Cool.
Trying to think what else I've been watching. I was torn whether to start watching Star Wars Skeleton Crew or not. I know you're not a huge Star Wars fan, but
that's
it's
okay.
like I could watch the first 2 episodes and then I can finish watching it at the end of January. I'm like, why not? I'm just going to wait and watch the whole lot once I get internet.
That makes sense.
It's not like anybody's going to spoil it for me because I'm not going to be online as much.
True. Very true.
Unless somebody emails me going, "Did Jude Law character dies?" or whatever. Then,
I'm totally going to email you with the funniest email
spoilers.
Right. Cool. Yeah. You know, I don't really watch too much like television or series based content. I did watch a couple things this year that I liked though. Chucky season 3 I finally got to see this year, and I've really enjoyed the Chucky series. It has been way better than I thought it would actually be. It is so gloriously over the top in every single episode that it feels very at home in that world. I love how as he's gotten older, Don Mancini has just really taken off the gloves and just goes as insane as he can with these characters. Expanding the lore in ways that like we didn't think were ever going to happen. So I quite enjoyed season 3. I didn't like it as much as 1 and 2, but I did like season 3. I thought it was pretty good. I did watch. It was not really I guess it was technically a show. It was something that HBO had aired a couple months ago. It was called Wise Guy, David Chase and The Sopranos.
Yeah, I've seen that advertised. It's like that's the sort of thing I'd watch because I love The Sopranos.
Yeah, me too. It's like my
I love the
show.
ending. I think the ending's one of the best endings ever.
Incredible.
Yeah,
I'm not suffer fools who want to piss on that ending. No. Understand, what he was doing with the camera, and it makes a whole lot of sense. But anyway, the Wise Guy, David Chase and Sopranos was very good. It was very good. I know like Drea Di Matteo had come out and said some stuff. She didn't appreciate the way that David Chase had sort of colored James Gandolfini. But it was very good. I enjoyed it. A lot of stuff I just didn't know. I don't think a lot of stuff, because David Chase, I mean, he always comes off as very sort of curmudgeonly, and he, even in that interview, like he's very much a man who does not want to be interviewed. He lets his art do the talking, and hearing him interviewed, you realize just how much his art was doing the talking during the writing and the production of The Sopranos. So if you're a Sopranos fan, you've probably already seen it, but if not, I think I got it for, I want to say it was either $5 or $10 on Apple. I was able to just buy them outright. Yeah. Sopranos is just legendary, and it's my favorite show of all time. I'm not a big show fan, but nothing tops Sopranos for me.
I do have in my collection a signed Sopranos poster by I think 7 of the main cast, including James Gandolfini. So I'll be showing that off at some point.
You are the legend, sir.
But yes, most of the main ones signed it.
Amazing.
Polly Walnuts and all them.
Nice.
So.
I had an old box set signed by Drea Di Matteo because I'd seen her at a horror convention.
Yeah.
And that was the only Sopranos person I ever really got to meet, right? But she was, I think, doing Sons of Anarchy or something at the time. So I think she was on that show. Whatever. She was on something else.
Yeah.
I never watched it, but and then the only other show I think I watched this year was I think it was 3 parts, maybe 4, I forget now. But again, I just downloaded. I paid Apple and downloaded it. The Uzumaki anime series, which was, I mean, just so close to the original Junji Ito manga. It was incredible. This thing took years to animate, but it is so gorgeous and so perfectly done. I really enjoyed that. But again, I just don't watch a lot of shows, right? I tend to, between movies, music, and video games, it's like doesn't leave a lot of room for shows, right? So
I think you've really got to be really choosy about what you watch, and I've learned that as the years go on. I've never been one of those people who does a podcast with like, I need to watch it because I need to tell everybody my opinion. It's like, if I want to watch it, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch, I think of 4 of the films I've watched this year have been Roadhouse. So I've seen the remake twice and I've seen the original one twice this year. I'm good with that. I don't care. I'm not going to do a podcast going, I'm watching Roadhouse again. Let me talk about it again.
Yeah.
You watch what you watch and you listen to what you want to listen to. And if people are interested to hear your thoughts on it, that's nice. If they're not, couldn't care less.
Yeah, and I was just having a similar. I kind of had said something similar to my brother a few days ago. He had emailed me and said he was watching the Pascal Auger film Incident in a Ghostland, and he's like, "Have you seen it?" I go, "Oh yeah, I love that movie, dude." And that's the director of Martyrs. He's like, "Oh yeah, I've heard Martyrs is really brutal. I gotta watch that." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm the one who told you it was brutal, and I'm the one who lent it to you, and you never watched it."
So,
I said, "Look, I don't recommend movies to anybody anymore. I really don't. I don't want to, because everybody has different tastes.
Yeah.
So I said, please, though, if you're going to watch Martyrs, just make sure you watch the original, not that freaking remake. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't like to, you know, I don't want to profess like this is the greatest film of all time, or I think it's the greatest film ever, because like everybody's tastes run so very different, right?
Yeah.
So all we can do is talk about what we like, and if it sounds interesting to somebody, maybe they'll check it out. But you know what? If they don't, I don't really care. So so it's fine.
And I think with the genres that you like most, like the hardcore horror stuff, similar to Stu Miller in some cases, I suppose for you it's even riskier. So what did you watch at the weekend, Chris? I watched the Serbian film again. Oh, I've never heard of that. Would I like it? Well, I think it's great. Brilliant. I'll go watch it. Chris, what have you made me watch? Mm-hmm. You know, there's that sort of freakiness about, you've got to be careful what you recommend to people. And I'm the same, you know, lower down, but I still have to be wary of recommended stuff.
I think where you and I are similar is that throughout most of our lives, I would bet, because I can definitely say this about myself, but I would bet you would be similar in that your interests have been so very personal and very much your own that you've probably became very aware at an early age that the things you felt very passionately about were maybe different from the things other people felt very passionately about. So you learn to maybe keep some of that stuff closer to the chest, right, as they say, or whatever. And so I learned that very early on as well, between music, film, even video games at a young age. You were a dork if you played video games. Now it's like, you know, the leading media industry, right? But but you know, so like you learned like, hey, you know, unless you want to talk about, you know, Jesus or sports or you know, politics in the US, like keep your interests close, you know, shut up about your interests. We don't want to hear about them. So when I really started getting into underground and more extreme independent horror films, it was very easy for me to realize like nobody's going to want to hear me talk about this stuff. And that's why when I met Luke from BTK, we just were chatting about, I think, High Tension, and he had asked if I'd ever seen the movie, the Serbian film, which still hadn't gotten a release. And I said, actually, I have a copy of it. And we just became instant friends right there, right? And because like you never find people like that in the real world, maybe online. Sure, but
you don't bump into somebody and you're like, oh, is that a Serbian film DVD or Blu-ray you've got there? Yes, it is. I love this film. Which version is this? You know, you don't tend to find those out in the wild unless you go looking for them, so keyboard or whatever. So
I remember that though. Whenever I'm talking to, like, you know, I started with this new team of people with my job, and you know, my boss is super cool. Like he knows I'm really into horror films and stuff, and I guess he mentioned that to a few of the people. And like, oh, Chris, I hear you like horror films. Like what's your favorite movie? And I really don't want to have that conversation with people. Because if I told you, first of all, I don't like picking a favorite movie. But if I told you what some of my favorite movies were, and like you actually went and watched them,
did think I'm not going near Chris, he may murder me type. Is there still that stigma with horror fans? Do you think?
I think so, because I think horror, while it's become so mainstream, you know, it's like, you know, it always does well at the box office thanks to people like Blumhouse and all that stuff. But and you know, thanks to Walking Dead on TV, it really gained foothold on television. But so like horror is more mainstream, but all the people that latched onto that, they're not aware that there's this other level of horror, right? And I'm not talking about super grotesque stuff, but just like there's a whole other level of like more independent, more thought-provoking, more challenging horror films out there. And then, maybe way more brutal and grotesque films. And they don't want to know about that stuff. And that's fine. Like, I don't think everybody should like go watch Martyrs or go watch August Underground. Like, no. Like, that's for other people. Like, you enjoy, you know, the stuff you enjoy. But I don't want to have the conversation either, because like when you're like, oh, I really liked Insidious, I have nothing to say. Like, I'm like, it sure is a movie. Like, enjoy that. Like,
I think Insidious is fine. You know, I don't own any of the films. I've seen them all, I think, now, and I'm like, they're okay.
Right.
But they're not my favorite ones.
And that's not to say I poo-poo mainstream films, because as we're about to talk about in a few minutes, when we're going to get into our favorite picks of the year, a couple of my favorite picks of the year were released in theaters.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not trying to be like an edgelord, or I'm not trying to be some like underground horror elitist, because I'm really not. Like, I'm just a dude that watches movies. But like, I also understand, there are different levels especially when it comes to horror, of people that will like certain types and then maybe don't recommend, like the film Angst to them or or Pig or something like that. Don't let's not talk about that stuff with them. Yeah. So yeah.
I think there are the different levels, because I had this conversation with Rob, who I used to record with, and he would say whenever he was on a show with me and Stu Miller, Rob always felt like he was the dumbest person in the room because he didn't know as much as me and Stu Miller did. And I said, well, Rob, I said, I understand what you're saying, but I also feel that when I'm talking to Stu Miller, because Stu Miller knows far more about horror films than I do. And I'm okay with that because I watch lots of different stuff and whatnot.
Sure.
And I'm the same with you. You could name 10 films that you've watched this year, and there might be 8 or 9 of them that I've never heard of. And I'd be like, you could literally make up film titles. I'm like, okay, I'll add that on my list. Yeah. So there are different levels. Not everybody's is, I don't know whether obsessed is the right word, but not everybody's main focus is movies or music. Mine is movies. You drop me in a room with people and right, go speak to them all about politics. I'm like, I'd rather not. I don't really know. Drop me in a room and start movie talk. I'll have the whole thing as a podcast within 20 minutes and they'll all be entertained.
Absolutely. And I, we're talking about these different levels of people who enjoy film. Rob feels like he doesn't know as much as you and Stu. You feel like you don't know as much as maybe Stu about certain types of movies or me about certain types of movies. Well, I feel the same way when I listen to you guys. I don't know the first thing about Star Wars or Steven Spielberg movies or, all these other like movies that, yes, I know of them, but like I never experienced them the same way maybe that you guys have, or maybe I don't have the same appreciation for them. So, I don't think people should feel necessarily dumb, but I think they should. There's just so many different levels of fandom, and everybody has fandom for like certain things. Like I always feel like maybe I'm missing out because like having sort of lived a life of mostly, I didn't have a lot of friends growing up, and I kept to myself, so I learned what my interests were, and I really dug deep on those interests. So I found out very, very, very early on, way too early on, that I loved horror films. And you start like everybody else at a young age. You start with what's available. And what's available at the time was Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Texas Chainsaw, couple, things like that. And then you kind of move on from there. And if you really love it, you start moving on from there and really kind of like widening the net and trying to find out what else is out there. But I always felt like maybe I was missing out because beyond horror films, the only other movies like I found I really loved were mafia movies, because I grew up with a lot of that stuff too, and I just love a good mob movie. But I always kind of feel somewhat envious of these people who can watch just about any genre of film and be entertained, because for me, like, I like anime and stuff, like older anime, like horror anime and stuff, but like unless it's horror or like a mafia story, like I have to really question, do I want to watch this?
I'm the same with musicals. Musicals. There are some musicals that I do like, but there's not many. It's a short list. Just because it's not for me, and I'm fine with it. It's like
I think there's only two musicals I like. One's Nightmare Before Christmas, and the other would be maybe Repo the Genetic Opera, but only if you took out all the singing, because Repo has really good songs, but the singing ruins that movie.
So one of the only musicals you like, if you take the music parts out, it's a good film.
Well, if you take the singing parts out,
take the singing parts out. I think for me, it's Sweeney Todd, Greatest Showman, because it's just
that is shot. Good. Sweeney Todd's good too. Yeah.
And Rock of Ages, which
okay,
I like that, and it just blows my mind. That's Tom Cruise singing. I'm like, that guy can just literally do anything. It's quite makes us feel inadequate. It's like, really.
You want to talk about feeling inadequate around somebody?
I watched the Mission Impossible trailer, and even watching him running, I'm like, now I'm tired. So it's just
yeah. That guy's superhuman at his age doing what he does.
Yeah,
but I don't know, man. Different levels of fandom for sure. And I think there is, some good movies this year to be a fan about. Yeah. So what do you say we talk about some of them?
I say we give it a go. My list, obviously, is like 7th of December. This has been recorded. So there may be some other stuff that comes out is really good. I don't know, but I won't be able to talk about it on a... I'm still going to try and do... I'm going to try and do the odd solo podcast, because I can still record those. And then if I'm sitting in a McDonald's, I can just go upload to podcast feed.
There you go.
you are officially the final guest
boy.
host of the year, Chris.
Oh boy.
One thing I did start doing this year was keeping a list of how many seasons of TV shows I watched, because I always figured I spend a lot more time watching TV than I used to. And looking at it, 46 different seasons of TV shows this year.
Across how many series?
Probably about a dozen series, I think. I won't go down the full 46, but there's we've been rewatching all the episodes of Friends. I've watched all 5 seasons of Yellowstone, 3 seasons of Mayor of Kingston, 2 batches of Cobra Kai, which are still classed as season 6, even though they came out separately. House of the Dragon and all that sort of stuff. So 46 seasons is quite a lot.
That really is. But it sounds like you had 46 good seasons of shows to watch. I mean, you're also be watching them all. So
no, exactly. And I've just worked out how to split my screen as well, so I can have a spreadsheet on one side and you on the other. So that's good.
There you go. I got my iPad underneath my computer.
I did think about that, but then I realized I'd boxed it up yesterday. So I'm like, it's around here somewhere. So how it's been a good year for films. I think every year's a good year for films, to be fair.
It is. And I mean, I don't think there's been a bad year of films. I always look at 2013 as the time where I really started becoming serious about the way I thought about and kind of even just internally critiqued film. You know, and because that was the year I started BTK and everything. So that was the year I really started getting serious about, these movies that were coming out and how I kind of compartmentalized them, thought about them. And I agree. I don't think there is a bad year of film. I think it's only a bad year of film if you haven't had time to watch movies, because there's always good movies out there. So, or
if you spend your time being like a lot of the internet does, we're like, oh, I hope this film sucks, I'm going to watch it. Don't. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. Don't
even let them fool you, though, Stuart. Those people are happier than pigs in shit being able to be that miserable about movies. They would want it no other way. So exactly. Sodom, as you say.
Exactly.
So, but what was I don't know, since I'm the last guest, I assume you've probably talked about some of your favorite picks on other shows already. But however you want to do it, if you want to kind of go back and forth about some cool movies we've watched, whatever.
I have 10.
Okay, me too.
And to be honest, a lot of them I look at and I go, I kind of remember the film, but I haven't written down any plots or who directed it, or in some cases. So this may just be a little bit of a list in some places.
Okay.
Because I kind of presumed that I would have more time to do all this prep for the end of the year show. And it's like, oh, by the way, no internet till the 10th. I'm like, oh, crap. Now I've got all this stuff to cram in a week.
Yeah.
You Can't Run Forever, starring the wonderful J.K. Simmons.
I don't think I've even heard of this one.
This is a film where, I mean, obviously, if you'll be familiar with J.K. Simmons.
Sure. He's great.
It's kind of like, imagine his character from Oz, so Vern Schillinger, who just pulls up alongside this car one day, kills one of the passengers, and decides to just hunt the other one down through the woods and just go, do you know what? I'm having a real bad day. I'm going to murder you. And that's what You Can't Run Forever is. It's full on J.K. Simmons.
I saw a picture of him online where he's like really jacked.
Yeah.
Is that from this movie?
I think that's from this one, because he did look like he could outrun Tom Cruise at one point, but he's like an angry J.K. Simmons. He's like,
dude, this movie sounds awesome. I want to watch this. I am
really
making a note right now.
You Can't Run Forever.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The next one, which I enjoyed, I didn't enjoy it for the reasons that other people might have enjoyed it, but it's Civil War by Alex Garland.
Yeah.
I love movies about journalists and war journalists, whether it's Salvador, whether it's the killing fields, whether it's stuff like that. And Civil War, I really liked it. A lot of people get mad at it, going, I didn't really explain why this. I didn't need an explanation. It's pretty much just journalists trying to get the best shot, trying to get interviews, find out, doing their job and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. A lot of people didn't. I think people just judge. I think they get mad if they go into a film and they're like, this isn't what I would have done. Well,
yeah.
You didn't make it, so
you didn't
don't
make the
about
movie.
it. You're watching somebody else's story. Do that one.
It's always weird to me, and I think I used to do it too a long time ago, but it's weird when I hear people's critiques of films, and it seems to center very much upon this notion of what the film is not.
Yeah.
Like the film should be this, therefore I don't like it. Like, no, you can't. To me, that's a wrong way to. That is like inarguably a wrong way to judge a film. You can't judge a movie because of the things it doesn't do.
No.
Like that's your own perception of what the film should be, or your own, maybe hype around the film that you bought into. It's very different if a movie advertises itself as one thing and ends up being something very different. But that's not the film's fault. That's the people who sold the film.
Yeah,
That's
the marketing
them,
team's fault,
right?
isn't it? Yeah.
They realized they had this movie, they didn't know how to market. Like I remember the old trailer for Ravenous back in the day.
Yeah.
The old like
Good
Wendigo
movie.
thing.
Like
great, amazing movie.
Yeah.
Amazing movie. But if you remember that trailer, it is not what that movie is.
No.
Like they cut that movie as they cut that trailer like a slasher thing, and like this like absolute horror experience. When you watch it, it's actually quite funny. And yeah, it's a horror film. It is. It is a horror film, but it's like it is not what that
really,
trailer. Yeah, they didn't know. And when you watch it, it makes sense. You're like, what is this movie? Like, of course they didn't know how to cut a trailer like for this. So, but yeah. Anyway, not to go off on a tangent, but that's just I don't agree with that way of judging a film. So,
but yeah, Civil War. There's a British comedy which you probably didn't make it stateside called Some Other Hood, which is like set in London, drug dealers, all that. It just made me laugh. I'm like, you know what? There's not enough films that really make you laugh nowadays.
Yeah.
Well, there might be. I just don't watch them for some reason. There's not a lot of comedies come across my desk, and kind of wish there were, because some years you go, do you know what? I need to giggle. So there was that one. There was Land of Bad, which is one of those films when I'm thinking, I can't really remember too much about Land of Bad, so I'm going to look it up. I think it was John Cena, if I remember rightly enough.
Okay.
No, it wasn't. It was Russell Crowe, Liam Hemsworth, and Luke Hemsworth. So it's an action thriller, basically, and it's all mercenaries and all that sort of stuff. So that's like really crappy pitch of that one, but that was one that I think I watched back in like March or something. Love Lies Bleeding.
I remember seeing the one sheet for this. This is the one with the really like jacked girl, right?
Yeah, the Twilight. I forgot the name.
Kirsten, the girl
Kirsten
from
Stewart. Kirsten Stewart. It's like Kirsten Dunst for some reason. Yeah. Good film. Very strange, weird scene at the end of it where you go, if you take that scene out, the film would be. It just goes off on like a David Lynchy type thing for about 30 seconds. And you're like, why is that there? I don't quite get why that's there. But the film is
it like very violent?
It's kind of like, do you know some of the early Coen stuff like Blood Simple or No Country for Old Men, that type of thing. So Kristen Stewart plays a character that owns a gym. She sees a girl who comes into the gym. She's like, well, you're quite nice. I think we should have a relationship. Mm-hmm. Then it sort of spirals where there's, one of these films where somebody does something and you go, oh shit, we better sort that mess out. And it keeps getting worse.
Yeah.
It's that type of film. She's really good in it. The cast is really good. And were it not for that weird little scene at the end, you go, well, it's odd. But I think it's an A24 film.
Yeah. I remember seeing, I think, a bit of a trailer and the one sheet for it, and I was interested. But I wasn't sure. Like, it has to hit a certain violence level to get me interested, I guess. So
I think it's probably, I wouldn't say, oh, you watch it, Chris. It's very violent. It's for you, you'd be like, I'd watch this at tea time type thing. But it's violent enough that it's got impactful violence in it where I don't want to give too many plot things away, but something happens and you're like, whoa.
I believe it's on Amazon Prime, so I'll have to watch it.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Roadhouse, the remake. I don't care what anybody says. I like it.
Was that twice. A movie or a show?
It was a movie that Amazon did. So it's a Doug Liman one, and then there was the big fight where Doug Liman went mad at Amazon because he didn't put it in cinemas. And then Amazon are like, well, we told you we weren't. He's like, ooh, and he sulked and, bitched and moaned about it. Jake Gyllenhaal, great.
Yeah, I hear you. Pretty good.
It doesn't replace the Swayze one. So I never really got into this whole which one's better type thing. It's like, I like them both. Mm-hmm. And I watched the original. I've seen the original Roadhouse a lot. And then I watched the new one. And then I went back and watched the original one. And then Annette watched the new one with me. And then she's like, I've never seen the original. So I went back and watched the original one again. So hence the 4 viewings of Roadhouse that I've done this year. Nice. And then I always find it fascinating when we've seen an original and then we watch a remake and you go, well, I kind of prefer the original one because you've got the nostalgia thing. Annette did it the other way around, and she prefers the Jake Gyllenhaal one to the Swayze one. So it's quite interesting when you flip it and watch somebody else watching it through a different set of lenses and see what their reaction is.
You know, I have no, I don't feel loyalty to an original film just because like I grew up with it or whatever. Like, because I didn't grow up with it. It was a movie I watched when I was a kid, and then I went and did other things. So it's like,
like I don't life.
Yeah, like I don't. I guess I just don't feel that sort of nostalgia, and I always want a remake to be better. Like it should be. Like, why do it at all if it's not going to be? Or at least it should be very different. Like I mentioned with the Suspiria remake or something like that. It should be something very much its own. You know, I love the original Maniac, but I prefer the
new one.
Frank Calhoun, Alexandre Aja produced. We'll say he produced it, and we all know he directed it. Maniac with Elijah Wood. I think that is, for me, it's better for different reasons. But really it's just as good, but in a very different way, right? Because it still does all the stuff Maniac does, but it does it in sort of a modern context from a different point of view, obviously. So, and I think if I care enough to see a remake, I probably like the original. So hopefully it'll be at least better or weirdly different, right? So
I was the same with the Crow remake. You know, I saw the poster came out, everybody went mad, go, this film's going to suck. It's like, what, really? You've judged that from a poster? All right, and fair enough. And then the trailer came out, and I saw the trailer, and I'm like, it's kind of interesting. Doesn't look anything like the Alex Proyas, Brandon Lee one, but, you know, which I love. I think it's great. And then I watched the film, and I really like the film, and I really like the 1994 one, and they're very different. The core of it's still there. So it's, you know, at the end of it, it's about somebody that comes back to, you know, revenge and all that sort of stuff. So the basics of it are still there, but they couldn't be more different. Really.
I mean, I have no interest in seeing the Crow remake, and I do love the original, but also like I just didn't think the movie looked good, so that's why I didn't care to see it. I did mention if it comes up for free, like on Prime, I will watch it because I do like the Crow, and I figure if I've watched all those other awful sequels, I will definitely watch this one. However, I also would agree that would also say that there's no way they could remake The Crow like shot for shot today, because it was such a product of its time. It was a product not only of the original graphic novel, but then the original graphic novel was kind of updated for the movie, and it was 90s as hell. And like, you couldn't just like, okay, well, let's do that again, because it wouldn't work in 2024, right? At least I don't think it would. So it would have to, they had to do something different with The Crow, and whether that worked for everybody, obviously it didn't seem to work for most people.
Didn't work for the box office, that's for sure. But I think, you know, I always wonder how much of the internet is actually the movie going public. You know, the people we see on Facebook or Twitter bitching and moaning about films, is that like 5% of movie going? Is that like 65%? And you know, I don't know. Do people then? And I think people do look at comments going, oh, so-and-so said it's terrible, therefore I won't watch it. You're like, get your own mind up. Yeah. Like you said a little while ago, it's like films that you like, not everybody is necessarily also going to like. So I don't get why. I always say to Stu Miller, it's like, I will take a recommendation from you, but if you say a film's terrible, I'm probably not going to avoid it if I was going to watch it anyway. So
yeah. No, I'm the same way. Same way. You can't do that. I mean, I don't care if it's somebody who I 100% agree with all the time on movies, and there's nobody like that in the world because everybody's different. But even if there was somebody like that and they said, yeah, don't waste your time, this sucks. If I wanted to watch it, I'm watching it.
You're going to watch it anyway, aren't you?
You got to make up your own mind. So
exactly. So yeah, I like The Crow. It's not on my top list though, but it is a thing of its time nowadays. Yeah. Whereas, you know, like the 90s one was a thing.
Oh yeah.
Of the 90s, but
Sure.
My next one is an indie film called 5 Pounds of Pressure, starring Luke Evans. I like these sort of indie films where it's just a guy who gets out of prison and he tries to have a nice life and people don't want him to. And that's pretty much what 5 Pounds of Pressure is. Okay. It's that sort of guy trying to hold his life. It's like a really low budget Carlitos way. Yeah. It's like, you know, I want to get out. They pull me back in type movie. I liked it.
There was a movie years ago, you've probably seen it, with Kevin Bacon called The Woodsman.
Yes.
Yeah. Similar idea. Dude gets out of prison, except he got out of prison.
He's a pedophile, wasn't he?
Yeah, some really like that shit. And, you know, watching this guy try to reacclimate to society when there are people that know what he's done. And of course, then watching him stalk kids like in the mall and stuff, like that is a grueling film to get through. That is
I've seen that for a long
film.
time, but it was Kevin's wife, Kira.
Yeah, she was in it as well. She's like the co-worker. Yeah. Oh, she directed it as well?
I think she did. Yeah, I think that's okay. Yeah, it's a good movie.
But what a cool movie, and I agree. I like those kinds of stories as well. They're fun. They're fun.
Next one is I've got like 3 left. I'm trying to save my favorite film of the year. So originally my favorite film of the year was Knox Goes Away with Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
Where Michael Keaton plays Knox. He goes to the doctors. He finds out that he's got he's early dementia.
Yeah.
And he's a hitman. So he starts to tie everything up and go, okay, I need to make sure everything's in place because at some point I'm not going to be able to function. And that's pretty much the premise of the movie. Michael Keaton he's one of the go-to actors, I think. If Keaton's in it, I'll watch it because he always gives a good performance. Even if the film isn't great, I always enjoy seeing Michael Keaton.
This Keaton renaissance we've been in for the last several years has been awesome because he's great. You know, it's like he never wasn't great, but he seemed to go away for a while. Yeah. No pun intended, basically. Yeah. But he wasn't like in as much stuff, and then he really kind of came back, and it's cool. It's cool.
Good. So check out Knox Goes Away.
Yeah.
My next favorite film, which Knox Goes Away, was If, the Ryan Reynolds one about imaginary friends, which was just You know when you watch a film and you go, this is just, why have I had a grin on my face for the past hour and a half? Yeah. It's an original film. People complain there's not enough original films. Yeah, all right. And that's a whole on the podcast. There's tons of them, just people don't watch them. It's a very original film. It's family friendly. It has the best use of Tina Turner's Better Be Good to Me I've ever seen on film ever. Just charming, just really original and charming, and you come away from it going, actually, I'm gonna have a good day now. So that was my best film.
Okay.
And then we watched another one. I was trying to think of the guy who played Jack Reacher. It's Alan Ritchson.
Okay.
And who else is in it? I need to shout out the main woman in that. I feel bad sometimes when I can't remember somebody who's in a film, even though they're really amazing.
It's actually very rare.
I think it's Hilary Swank, to be fair, but I'm going to. Okay. It is Hilary Swank. Yes, it was. Yeah. So Alan Ritchson plays, and this is all the setup for the film. He plays a character whose wife has died in hospital, and then he finds out that one of his young children is really ill, to the point she needs a transplant of something. So his life starts to crumble because it's like, how can I go out and work whilst looking after my children? He's got 2 children. I've just lost my wife. I don't know what I'm doing. He's really hitting rock bottom. And then it flips over to Hilary Swank, who's an alcoholic. And she reads a newspaper article about this Alan Ritchson case. And she's like, do you know what? I'm going to help him out. And by helping him out, she's helping herself out. And it's one of those films where it's about good people doing good things for other people in this world. And it sounds depressing, but it's really not. I tried to get Rob to watch it, and I had like an argument with Rob because it's his type of movie. He loves these films where good people are in bad situations, but they try and help and, all things. And 3 times he started watching the film, and 3 times he bailed.
Oh.
And he phoned me up the first time and he said, I tried watching it. He said, I can't watch that. I'm like, why not? He said, but the wife dies. This is like very beginning. The wife dies. I'm like, well, yeah, I've told you that part. But then it's about this other stuff. He's like, I can't watch it. It's depressing. I'm like, but you watch The Walking Dead. He went, yeah, Walking Dead's really good though. And it's not real, is it? I'm like, well, Ordinary Angels kind of isn't. Based on a true story, but it's a film you're watching. All right, I'll give it another go. Fast forward about a week, he phones up. He said, I've got 12 minutes into it. He said, can't watch it anymore.
Wow.
I'm like, why? He said, the kid's ill. I'm like, yeah, that's the setup for the film, Rob. Seriously, Rob. If there is ever a film that's made for you, it's this one. You will absolutely love this film. Yeah, whatever. So we had a bit of a conversation about it. I'll give it another go. Okay. Week later, I got up to 20 minutes. Can't do it. I'm like, right, fuck you then. He said, what do you mean? I'm like, I am never recommending another film to you ever again. If you don't want to watch that one, it's fine. I laid it into him. I said, I don't mind. I really don't mind. But this film is perfect for you. It's a film that they've made for you. I know for a fact that you would love it. You would love it. And no, can't do it. I'm like, well, balls to you then, forget it. And I've never recommended a film to him since. I'm like, I'm done.
He has to understand, like, if there's one thing it's film.
Yeah.
And like, he has to understand, like, you're not trying to ruin his world. Like, you recommended this thing now several different times because you really think this is a movie he's gonna like. So, not everything's for everybody. And if he has a real hard time getting through some of those setups, depressing as they may be, like, I don't know. He always seemed like such a nice guy, but he also seemed like maybe he had some, certain things affected him more acutely than maybe other people.
It's a very polite way of putting it, but I 100% agree with you, Chris.
Well, just as a listener, it's just so, I'm basically trying to say I can maybe understand why maybe certain things wouldn't be like something he wouldn't want to appreciate, but that I always feel bad for people like that because, like, they miss out on a lot of really cool films and stuff because, like, well, life gets sick or whatever, or dog dies or whatever, so I'm not going to watch it. It's like, yeah, but like there's other things in the movie. It's not a movie about the dog dying. It's a movie about the joy the dog brought to the family's life, and then it dies. But like, it's whatever. It's everybody has to figure that out for themselves, though, right?
And all the stuff that he'd mentioned is in like the first 15 minutes of the film. So he went, I can't watch a film where a child dies. Does a child die? I said, look, I don't really like spoiling movies.
Yeah.
But let's just say that it's the child's, it's all right. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about that. If you think you're going to see scenes which you'll be okay. I said, that's as close as I'm getting, Rob. Nope, still wouldn't watch it. And to this day, I don't think he's finished watching it, which is a real shame because, I used to have this thing in the video store where somebody could walk in and they were like, well, what should I watch? And if you know the person, it's fine. But if you don't, it becomes a bit tricky. And I used to have this thing when it's like, tell me 3 films on this wall that you really like. And they would go, that one, that one, and that one. You go, right, based on those 3 films, I can recommend like a dozen that you will like. So it's like, I like Shawshank, right? Well, you probably like The Green Mile or that type of thing. I like thrillers, right? We'll watch Seven or Leon or something like that. You could narrow it down. So I know films and I know what people would like and I know what people wouldn't. But and I sat down and we watched Ordinary Angels, and by the end of it we were like, that could be the best film that we've seen this year. If was that film before, but If for me was so good because of one particular scene that just elevated up beyond the rest. But Ordinary Angels, we were sat on like the edge of our seats for the full hour and a half or whatever. We're like, that was awesome. So that's my favorite film that I've seen this year.
Okay.
But not a lot. But it didn't make a lot of money at the cinema.
No.
It's an original film. Nobody watched it. If original film didn't do well. The box office winners are all sequels and remakes because that's what people are watching. Which is fun.
And then they go online and bitch about them. So
why is there no original films? Millions of them. Go watch them. You've got to dig down for them a little bit. You've got to go looking for them, but that's not that difficult.
They're always out there. There's a whole ocean of movies that people are just unaware are out there every year.
There is.
So, but, and again, I don't expect everybody to watch everything, but like, if you're going to take the time to bitch about the lack of originality or the lack of films coming out, like, just realize like there are other ways to watch movies, and it doesn't mean going to the movie theater all the time, but whatever. So,
yeah. So how's your year in film been?
Amazing. Honestly, I had a tough time. Even coming up with the top 10. I started it pretty early and then began adding to it. And then, of course, as you watch more stuff, you start taking things off of it. I figured I'd do a top 10 and a list of honorable mentions.
Yeah.
So really no particular order. I feel pretty confident with this top 10. I think maybe the top 3 are probably the top 3, but they're probably also interchangeable as my top 3. So starting at top 10, a movie I mentioned one of our last shows, The Profane Exhibit. It's a movie I've been waiting for better part of a decade. It's a underground extreme horror anthology with some pretty big directors in the genre, including one who is an absolute favorite of mine, who is considered by many to be the most hated man in horror. His name's Marion Dora, and he did a short in there that's just incredible. It's worth the price of admission alone. It's also probably the most messed up of them all. It's not even the most gory. It's just probably the most messed up one of them all. And it looks, feels, smells, sounds exactly like a Marion Dora film. It is grotesque.
Why is he the most hated man in horror? Just because people can't handle his films, or?
He's one of those guys. He's put out some very, very rough films where the stuff you're watching in many cases is real, whether it's animals being killed, whether it's people being assaulted. There's some very, very grotesque stuff. Just look up Marion Dora and yourself and audience members, whomever, listeners. And he's never been on camera, as far as anybody knows. He did direct a documentary on like the rainforest, deforestation, or I have something like that. I forget where, but she found like he had directed a documentary with what is apparently his real name, because Marion Dora is not his real name. His movies are the only movies that make me feel not good when I watch them. He's literally the only director that I feel that way about, which makes him a favorite director of mine. He directed the movie Cannibal years ago, which was based on that German cannibal case. He has a movie called Carcinoma that is utterly grotesque. Melancholy Der Angel, which is less said about that, the better. I don't want you to lose listeners. So just a great director, and he had a short in this, which is actually one of his more tame films, but it's so good and it's so beautifully shot. Like, man, it's such a gorgeous film. And then like I watched the special feature, how they made it. Like they made it like in a day, and he's like super. He's either German or Austrian. I think he's German, and he's like very very rough to work with, but he makes these amazing films. So love the Profane Exhibit. I didn't love every short in it, but on the whole, I think it was worth the 10-year wait, and I'm glad it's finally out. Stop Motion was another film that I think it came out this year. Yeah, it did, because I remember it came out and it hit I think it hit Shudder, and I wanted to watch it, but it is a very quiet film, and it was during the summer that I wanted to watch it, and we have our air conditioner in our living room that's super loud. Right. So we tend to watch a lot of subtitled films in the summer because we don't have to worry about missing what they're saying because of the loud air conditioner. So I said, let's wait till the winter, or at least the autumn, when we're not running the air conditioner, to watch Stop Motion. So we finally watched it a few months ago, and I loved it. I thought it was really good. I forget the director's name. I know he had directed some shorts in like the ABCs of Death, and he has a very particular stop motion animation style. He's a master at it. And it's a wonderful film, very beautiful, very dark, tells a really cool story. It leaves a lot to be inferred by the audience, which I love. They don't spell everything out, but it's there if you want it. And those are literally my favorite films. So,
same.
Long Legs, big Oz Perkins fan, ever since I saw Black Coat's Daughter. I never saw I'm the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. I know Lydia has. We were both talking. She wasn't as into that one, but we were both talking about maybe going back. She wanted to rewatch it. I wanted to see it for the first time. But I love The Black Coat's Daughter. She actually showed me that movie for the first time years ago, and I just thought it was incredible. And then Gretel and Hansel, he also directed, which had more of a wide release, and that was really good. And Long Legs is great. It really is. I'm not into like cop-centric movies. Like I find them kind of boring, but this is obviously a lot more horror driven. It's great. All the performances you've heard about are really good in it. Again, I'm shocked this movie even hit theaters. Like it's shocking to me that a movie of this caliber, of this level of weirdness and sort of occult centric horror hit theaters.
Do you think that was probably good because Nick Cage's involvement? Do you think that's what sparked that extra little bit of attention before people had watched the film? I think there's possibly a lot of people went to see it because Nicolas Cage is supposed to be Nicolas Cage in it. Crazy.
I think word of mouth really helped with people going to see it because of Nicolas Cage, but he was not. If you remember the original trailer for that, which was incredible, like he was not featured heavily. You weren't
No, it
really even
wasn't.
supposed to know he was in it, even though it is his eyes like that are like the main
Yeah.
one sheet. You're not really supposed to know he's in it. I think it was the talk on the buzz on that movie and like, oh, Nicolas Cage being fucking crazy, like it's awesome. It's just Nicolas Cage on a Tuesday morning. But
Yep.
I think that helped get it wide release. But also, I mean, Gretel and Hansel had a wide release.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not like this director was completely unknown. Obviously the whole Anthony Perkins tie and all that stuff. Like he has ties in the movie industry, but he's also a damn good director. I mean, this guy is incredible. And of course, he has that Stephen King movie coming out, which has already seen a trailer and looks just amazing. Yeah, like that's going to be insane. So yeah, he is one to watch in. I mean, I used to say on the indie scene, but I mean, he's Hollywood now, baby.
He's Hollywood.
So.
Yep. He's got multiplex. Yep.
Yeah. So Longlegs is great. Most recent addition to my top 10 list was a movie that finally hit streaming last week, and I finally got to watch. Our old buddy Art the Clown, Terrifier 3, finally got to see it because I did not go to the theater to see it because I went to the theater enough this year, which we'll talk about.
Yep.
It was great. It was great. I do not like it as much as Terrifier 2 or 1. Right now, my hierarchy is Terrifier 2 is my favorite. 1 is a very close second, if not tied. And then 3 did some things that I found shocking, but not the things that everybody else is shocked by. The gore was just Terrifier gore. Like it wasn't like I don't think Damien Leone necessarily outdid himself. I think it is just as gleefully over the top as it's always been. I think the thing that shocked me was that there seemed to be a lot of things that happened off camera in that movie. And I don't know if that was because it was cut to hell. Because I mean, Terrifier 2 was a very long movie. That was like a 2.5-hour movie. Terrifier 3, I think, was just under 2 hours, if I'm not mistaken. We're right around the 2-hour mark. So it felt to me like there were scenes that were missing because there's a lot of shit that happens that is completely off camera, which is very unlike a Terrifier movie. You see everything in a Terrifier movie. So, and like, I'm talking about people like, there's a scene where a character goes to get something and it's like suddenly they just have it. You never said, I got to go get this thing. And then suddenly, oh, she just has it. This whole sequence where she went to go to this area to get this thing, she just has it. Or a major character dying. Terrifier 3 obviously is, I mean, they're not concerned about not showing gore. Like that's what they do. But like, did you just not film this major character getting killed, or did you have to cut it for time's sake? So maybe we'll see a director's cut that will make. I don't mind a long Terrifier movie, but it is weird when there just seem to be scenes that are missing. And there was some other stuff where it just seemed like there were things that weren't shown in the film. So
this is why BTK should still be a thing, because you go, oi, Damien, jump on my show and let's chat Terrifier.
Yeah, I don't think I think Damien Leone is out of the grasp of independent horror.
I don't think he is, because it's like I've seen him a lot on Facebook where I'm following his page, but we're not friends or anything. But I'd commented on Signature Entertainment are releasing it in the UK, and I'd commented on their thread, and it's like so and so's liked it. I'm like, who's that? Damien Leone's liked my comments. Like, how the fuck is he reading my comments? And he does. He goes and he responds to people and he types. So he's definitely not out of a reach. So shall I try and get him for 2025, and we'll get him on? Go, what's going on? Why was stuff off screen? What's the matter with you?
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, I still love what the man's doing, and Art the Clown is still as wonderful as ever. There was something that they did with the Art the Clown character that I didn't particularly like as much with this one, but that's okay. You know what? Not everything's for everybody, and it still made my top 10 because it's still a fun ass movie. So, next one was a movie I went to the theater for, Maxine. It definitely made my top 10. I loved it. Didn't love it as much as Pearl. Though I don't think anything. I don't think X was as good as Pearl. I think Pearl is like the Pearl of the trilogy. I mean, it is so good.
And they're kind of very different films, aren't they? They're all similar in ways, but they're also very different. So it's not a case of I didn't like Pearl, therefore I won't like Maxine. It's like there are.
It's practically an anthology at this point. I think Mia Goth was great in it. I don't think she. It's so tough following up Pearl. Pearl is like, expert filmmaking and made in secret too, which was amazing. But like, and her acting throughout all that, and particularly towards the end, is so freaking good. And to follow that up with anything had to be a massive like undertaking. And I think Mia Goth was really good, but I think the only time she really got to show off her acting skills was right in the beginning of the film, and the rest of it, she was just. It didn't feel like, it didn't feel like the character of Maxine to me, because she felt more like she was scared the whole movie.
Yeah.
And the way X kind of leads off, like she's sort of more empowered. So when you see her in Maxine at the beginning, she's very empowered, but then it becomes like, oh, she's being hunted or whatever. And now it's like she's kind of like this scared girl. I'm like, I don't really buy that, but that's okay. Again, it still made my top 10, so I loved it.
Yeah.
Another movie I went to the theater for was Alien Romulus.
I really liked Alien Romulus. Yeah,
really
enjoyed it.
Yeah. Good time. Wasn't I felt good that I could finally say I love a Fede Alvarez movie, because I didn't like Evil Dead that much. I know everybody else did. It wasn't for me. I thought it was absolutely just pandering to people. I don't really particularly care for
Don't Breathe.
Don't Breathe. Yeah, that's Don't Blink. Don't breathe.
Yeah, there's lots of them. Don't Move. Don't Blink. Everybody's movies are just trying to tell us what to do nowadays. It's ridiculous.
Remember the Grindhouse trailer for Don't.
Yes, don't do anything.
Don't enter the house. But no, Alien Romulus was cool. Like I said before, it was like a pastiche of like the best moments from all the Alien movies, and that's what it is. He gave people what they wanted. The aliens, for the most part, looked pretty good. I call it the face hugger show because it's more face huggers than anything. And you can even get that just from watching the trailer. There's a lot of face huggers in this thing. I didn't particularly love sort of a tangent they go off on at the end of the film with a new type of creature. I didn't like it. Yeah. But it was fine. It was a cool movie. It made my top 10. So again, I've kind of mentioned there's a couple things I don't like about a few of these movies, but getting into the top 4 here, these are movies I think are just great all the way through. Another movie I went to the theater for, and this is why I didn't go see Terrifier 3, because this is now 3 movies I saw in the theater, and that is way more than enough for me, was Late Night with the Devil.
Okay, yeah, which I've still not seen yet.
But... Yeah, I recommend it. It's phenomenal. I shouldn't say I recommend it because I don't know. I don't like recommending, but it's good. I think you'll like it, especially if you like things like Ghost Watch.
You can recommend that I watch it and make my own mind up.
I know you will.
There we go. Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. We happened to see it when we were visiting my family in Pennsylvania in the U.S. And we were supposed to go see it with my brother and his wife, but his wife couldn't make it in time, and then my brother was all pissed off about that. So Lydia and I just ended up going to see it on our own. And we really liked it, and it was kind of a cool way to see the movie, because it is a movie that takes place during the filming of a episode of TV, so you are effectively the audience watching the film from that perspective. So
if you're watching it with an audience, I mean, as much as annoying, people are annoying in cinemas anyway, but
so it was kind of an interesting, almost like meta way to watch the movie. But really great. Recommended if you like horror and you like that sort of, like I said, Ghost Watch type idea. Yeah. Which there's another movie coming out that's similar to that, I think, because of Late Night with the Devil. But it's a cool film. Very recently, I saw The Substance.
Yeah, I've not seen that. I really want to watch that.
Yeah, it's incredible. That director who had done that movie Revenge a few years ago, which I love. Revenge is really good. Yeah. She's a French director, and she is I don't remember her name, sorry. She's killing it, man. She's so good. She really is telling these really just incredible stories that seem to be very, very female centric, which I love, but not pandering to this generation's idea of what a strong female lead should be. Like, she's like, fuck all that shit. We're making a horror movie, and we're gonna tell some really cool female centric stories with some incredible actresses that are gonna like blow people away and are gonna be gritty and messed up and for fans of horror first and foremost, not for fans of people who want to champion that women need to have better roles in horror or whatever. Like, it's more for horror fans. And she knows what she's doing, so won't say anything more about it. It's just an incredible film. Handling the Undead was another movie I'd watched earlier on this year that I was finally able to pick up a Blu-ray of, based on the John Lindquist book of the same name, the writer of like Let the Right One In, and Border and things like that have also been movies. One of my favorite authors, actually, and Handling the Undead was, I believe that was his follow-up to Let the Right One In, which I read years ago. Great story. It's a zombie story, but it's much like what Let the Right One is for vampires. This is for zombies. Okay. So it's very different. Like, it takes the idea of what we know about zombies and makes it something slightly different and maybe more quiet and less action-packed. But then when the scenes of violence hit, like, you remember, oh yeah, I'm watching a movie about zombies, or I'm watching a movie about vampires. Like when Ellie feeds in Let the Right One In, like, you reminded that this girl is a vampire, right? So it's great. It's a quiet film. It's I think it was it a Norwegian production? Is it Norwegian or Swedish? Which is where that author's from. He's from Sweden.
I think Let the Right One In was Norwegian, wasn't it? So it's.
I believe that was Swedish.
Was it Swedish?
Let the Right One In was Swedish. Yeah, right. I think so.
Scandinavian. There we go.
Scandinavian.
We know our stuff. It's
Don't yell at us, audience. And then the last one I'll mention, which, again, this top three, The Substance, Handling the Undead, and this one I'm about to mention would pretty much be my top three. And the last one I'll mention will be The Devil's Bath, which is from Veronica something and Severin Fiala. I always forget Veronica's last name. The two directors who did Goodnight Mommy. They did The Lodge, and The Devil's Bath is their newest film that came out this year. It hit Shudder. Hoping that it gets a Blu-ray release at some point. Maybe it already has. I have to check. It's a period piece set in, I believe it's in Austria in, I guess it would be the 1800s. Incredible film, really incredible film. It's akin to something like the film that came out years ago, Hagazusa. It's sort of similar to that in that it's a horror story, but it's a lot of the horror is about this person suffering from madness, and it goes pretty crazy. And those two just make, and is it Veronica Franz? I think. Anyway, sorry, I'm still thinking about it. They make such incredible films. They make films unlike anybody. They tell stories unlike anybody else. And every time they have a movie coming out, it's always a treat because I know I'm in for something that's amazing and something that's unlike anything else I've ever seen, really. So
you were correct. It was Veronica Franz. I just looked it up. I'm like,
thank you.
To put Chris out of his misery, I'll look it up.
Thank you.
But yeah, it was Veronica Franz.
So I gotta recommend The Devil's Bath to anybody who likes those kinds of messed up movies that deal more with maybe human madness than anything else. It's quiet, it's slow, some would say, but it's beautiful and it's incredible. So those were my top 10 easily. And I had a quick list of other things. I'll just very quickly mention some other movies that were really good that I saw this year, or at least semi-good. Recently I watched the Spanish film Venus, which is directed by Jaime Balaguero, who did like Wreck and stuff like that. Really cool, like crime / occult horror film. Really good stuff. Furiosa. I liked Furiosa.
I liked it. But do you know what? I was thinking this is like a weird topic that we'd probably do on another podcast, but it's like the longevity attention spans of people with films now is so short.
Yeah.
Who's talking about, I mean, you've mentioned Furiosa, but who's talking about that or The Fall Guy now? Nobody.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd think in your brain, did that come out like 5 years ago? No, came out this year. Nobody talks about them anymore.
Yeah.
They talk about them for like 2-3 weeks and then they're done.
Yeah.
And it's just such a shame.
Yeah. Maybe it's because you and I, like, we know we're probably going to have a discussion at some point, or, obviously we take films a lot more seriously than some people do, but, like Furiosa was a movie I saw over the summer when the 4K disc came out. I picked it up when I was, again, visiting the States, and I did not like the trailer when I first saw that. I thought it looked very like CG and very
cartoony,
fake.
Didn't it? Yeah.
And I'm like, ugh. But then, you know what? Like, I heard how cool the movie was, and I really liked Fury Road. I don't like the original Mad Max movies, but I loved Fury Road. I don't. Yeah. I'm not a Mad Max fan. No. I'm the first to say it. But you know what? I love Fury Road. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, well, I want to see more of these characters, right? So I saw it and freaking loved it. I think it's every bit as good as, maybe even better than Fury Road in some ways, because, like, I mean, that is a like Furiosa is a beefy movie with a lot of stuff that happens, whereas Fury Road kind of feels like, it's a long car chase, right?
Yeah.
But incredible film. So
I think for me, the one thing that Fury Road has over Furiosa is Fury Road has a better soundtrack. I've listened to the soundtrack of Fury Road a lot, and it's like it has big themes and the drums, and it's like, wow, that's a soundtrack. And it works well listening to it on its own. You don't always have to, listen to it while you're watching a movie type thing. And I got the Furiosa soundtrack before I'd seen. I'm like, I want more of that. I want more of this Fury Road stuff. And it's Tom Hulkenberg again. Awesome. No, the soundtrack didn't work as well as on a standalone album.
Okay.
As the Fury Road was. So that kind of, I'm like, I wanted more Fury Road music. But
I love talking to you about movies, Stuart, because like you're somebody who really appreciates a score.
I love scores. Yeah.
And some people, they appreciate it, but it's more of a subconscious thing where like it's always, it's playing and it helps them appreciate the movie, but they don't think about it afterwards, or they don't go, I'm going to go buy that record. Like you're somebody who really appreciates a good score. And I love that, man. That's so cool.
I remember listening. I like Christopher Nolan's a weird topic as well. I like Christopher Nolan movies, but I don't hold him up there as like, he's Hitchcock, he's Spielberg. It's like, I like Christopher Nolan movies. He knows how to do a shot, and he obviously, get his vision out and everything. And I remember Oppenheimer, and I'm like, I don't really want to watch a 3-hour film about the guy who invented the nuclear bomb. It's a good cast, it's fine. And I listened to the soundtrack beforehand. I'm like, I really want to watch this film. The soundtrack to Oppenheimer is amazing. And I've listened to that more than I've watched the film. But no, I do love a good movie score.
Incredible. And I love that. Recently we saw the Radleys, the English vampire film. It's a vampire horror comedy with a couple recognizable folks in it. It's a good time. We just watched a couple nights ago The Beast Within, which is I'm a sucker for werewolf movies, and this was supposed to be a werewolf movie.
Is this the Sadie Katz one? Is she in that? I think Sadie Katz is in it. I think I've seen her.
The guy from Game of Thrones is in it. I know that.
Yeah.
Kit something.
Kit Harington. Yeah,
that's his name. Yeah. Sorry, I remember I watched like one episode of Game of Thrones, but I knew he was in it.
Yeah.
It was a good movie. It did some cool things. I thought I saw what it was doing early on, using a werewolf as an analogy, for like maybe an abusive relationship type thing. They throw a curveball right at the end that invalidates most of the movie.
Oh no!
Which I hate it when a movie does that. So I didn't particularly care for the way it ended. I still think it had cool parts. I'm not going to spoil it for people. I really won't. I think it's worth watching. I think when you got to see a werewolf, it looked pretty good, even though it wasn't doing very much. It wasn't what I hoped it would be, because I just want a good werewolf movie, and there's not very many of them. I am looking forward to watching the Frank Grillo action film that takes The Purge and mixes it with werewolves.
Nice. Yep. I'm up for that.
It's called Werewolves. I'm looking forward to that.
Yep.
We watched Beetlejuice lately. That was good.
Good film. Yep.
I have no particular love for Beetlejuice. I really don't.
I like it. I like the original Beetlejuice. I mean, it's fine. When was the last time you watched it? 1987 or 1988 or whatever it was. It was when it came out that I watched it. I'm like, it's fine. But
I don't have that nostalgia. I love the cartoon when I was a kid. I love the cartoon. The cartoon was great. Lydia wanted to see Beetlejuice, and I was game for it, so she gave it a rent, and we enjoyed it. It was actually way better than I thought it would be. I had a really good time watching
Keaton.
it. So.
It's like just put Keaton in anything, and he will elevate it. So.
And Monica Bellucci's in it. Like, what a good Willem Dafoe. Like, all these great actors, right?
Yeah.
Real quick, going through the rest. First Omen, I know we talked about that. I loved it. Yep. I thought it was great. Didn't make my top 10, but I loved it. Recently watched Cuckoo, the Austrian film. Not as good as that director's previous film, Lose, but I liked Cuckoo, just not top 10 material. Massacre Video put out Blu-rays of Snuff 102 and Orozco the Embalmer this year, which were both very good. I've already seen Orozco, but Snuff 102 I'd never seen, and it's pretty brutal. It's a great film. In a Violent Nature, I like parts of In a Violent Nature. I think it does not hold up on a rewatch. It is not for me. The scene everybody seems to always talk about in that movie, I find to be kind of the most ridiculous. There are things about it I really don't like, particularly the last 15 minutes. I think are just bad, flat out bad. But whatever. it had a couple decent parts, and it was a good idea. And I know they're doing a sequel, so maybe I'll like that more. VHS Beyond, a couple crappy shorts. One in particular was terrible, but there was one in there that was so good that it makes it worth watching all the other ones. Did you see Beyond?
I haven't. No, I'm way behind on the VHS.
Okay.
I know a lot of even ABC's of Death. I think I've only seen the first one.
Okay. So, yeah, the second one's actually better, I think, in ABC's. But and then two more. Mads, which was the French vampire film, I guess we'll say. I really liked Mads for the way it kind of told its story, and this really watching this horrible event unfold over a single night. It was really good. However, I don't like the way they made the, again, vampires act, whatever you want to call them. Like it was stupid. It was really stupid, and I didn't buy it, and I didn't like it. But beyond that one aspect of it, everything else was really cool. Like, it's really cool to watch that movie. And then the other one I'll mention real briefly is Daddy's Head. Another thing that came to Shudder that was pretty decent, actually. I thought it had a good trailer, and I actually ended up really liking it. It told a story, a very atypical story about a stepmother, like a young stepmother, and her having to care for this young son that isn't her son. It was her now departed husband's son, and like what their relationship is like. But then there's this horrible event that's happening. So it was cool. It was an interesting story. So.
So what I love about your list is there's a lot of films that I haven't heard of. Not a lot of films, but there's a few. And I love that about the stuff that you watch. It's not, you listen to a lot of podcasts and like, my favorite film was the top 10 box office winners and all that. It's all the mainstream stuff. You definitely have a knack for finding films that a lot of people might be like, what's that one? I'm going to Google that one. I'm going to find out what it is. So I have your top 100 list that you sent me. Yeah. And at some point, probably next year, I'm going to start going down some of them and going, let me just see how many of these I've actually seen and find out how many I can get to before I'm like, I'm now officially scarred for life.
I don't know. I think my list this year, honestly, like I said, there's a lot of movies that hit theaters this year. And a lot of if a movie was came out on Shudder, I don't really consider it like an indie or hard to find movie. No. You know what I mean? With the exception of maybe The Profane Exhibit, I think all the movies I watched this year were fairly easy for anybody to watch, and I don't think were super challenging. There are a couple maybe in my honorable mentions, that maybe were a little bit more obscure, but I think for the most part, my list this year is kind of boring, but there was a lot of great movies this year, so they are what they are. And if half of them hit theaters, then that's just how it worked out,
And it's like we started off talking about how it's been a great year for movies and how it pretty much always is. Yeah. I think if anybody can't find 10 films that they enjoyed in any given year, I think they need to really look at the way they choose the films that they watch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe bounce off some of the streamers and actually always talk about putting in the work to really find the movies that speak to you, because the way streamers, the way Netflix, the way all these other services work, it's an algorithm, right? It's all they're telling you what to watch. And you just told a story about how when you were in the video store, you would ask the customer, tell me 3 movies on this wall you like. You were basically being the human algorithm.
It was.
It worked. Hey, and it worked, but it had the human touch, right? Had that human touch. And I think people really need to do what you were talking about there and really think about what they enjoy, and then find more movies like that. And don't let autoplay on Netflix tell you what you should be watching next. What a horrible, horrible world that is.
And I also remember in the video store when it would get to the point where I wouldn't have to ask people what 3 films they'd like. I would get customers coming in going, what am I going to watch tonight? You're like, well, that one's really good. They'd be like, all right. Then. They wouldn't read the back of the box. They would just take it. And obviously there's that whole gamble where you go, at some point I'm going to recommend a film that sucks. Because that's always going to happen. They can't and it very rarely happened.
Yeah.
Very rarely.
That's awesome, man.
I kind of miss those days.
I wanted to ask you as well. I know you didn't probably get to play as much games this year. Were there any cool games you played that you enjoyed?
I played Arizona Sunshine on the VR. Yeah. I haven't played it a lot, but I've made sure I've downloaded it to play while I'm offline. I was very into that. I liked the mechanics of it, and it felt the gunplay was amazing.
It looked great.
It looks really good. So I'm going to get more into that. I've played some old Lego games like Marvel Avengers and stuff, which is, I don't know how many years, it's like a PS4 game or something. But I think some of the VR stuff's impressed me. I haven't had the time or the energy. And while I was feeling ill, it's like, let's put a headset on and really mess with the brain. I'm like, I'm good. But it's all boxed up. It's in the new house.
Good.
There's a horror game. Is it Phasma? Something like that. That apparently is supposed to be amazing. I've been listening to a lot of VR podcasters who all they play is VR games, and a lot of them are like, I could only do it for 15 minutes. Freak me out. So I think horror game wise, that's getting a good word of mouth. I don't know if I
Aliens put it on. Game coming out this month.
There is
that for VR too. That looks. I mean,
how amazing would it be?
It's a little cartoony looking, but I hear it play really well. So I'm excited to see more of that. So
for you, Silent Hill.
Yeah, my top 5 Silent Hill 2 remake took it this year 100%. I expected it to be good because unlike most people, like I didn't want to see that game fail. Once people found out Bloober Team were making it, they're like, how dare they? No, it's good and it is an incredible game. But for most of the year, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was my game of the year. Like I played that early on, and man, I played through it twice, and that is a beefy game. It did some things I absolutely hated, like the mandatory mini games, and you can argue, oh, you don't have to do them. No, you do have to do them if you want to achieve certain things in the game. You have to complete these awful mini games. They're terrible in some cases. Some of them are all right, but so that really irritated me. But what an incredible game that was. And then along comes Silent Hill 2 at the end of I really didn't expect it to take Game of the Year. I expected it to hopefully make the top 3 or something, but man, it's so good. So yeah, it goes Silent Hill 2 remake, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Stellar Blade takes my 3rd spot because that game is so freaking awesome. And I know whatever, all the controversy, oh, she's sexualized, whatever. Like I get it, and you know, I if people have that complaint, that's fine. That does not mask the fact that it is still a great game underneath. Yeah. And I was having a conversation with Lydia about it. I said, you know what, if it was like a shirtless hot dude running around, I would still play the hell out of this game because it plays so freaking good. Like it is so awesome. Astrobot, it was my 4th favorite game.
I want to play that. I looked at the cost of it. I'm like, I don't have that at the minute, but Astrobot I will pick up at some point. So
you were talking about movies that just kind of left you grinning and more a joyful experience. Yeah. That's Astrobot. In video game form. It is so, if you're a PlayStation fan, even slightly a PlayStation fan, there's so much love here. And even if you're not, it's still an excellent platformer. I mean, it could teach Nintendo a thing or two about how to do a platformer. It's that good. And then my 5th favorite game was Still Wakes the Deep, which was a horror game that came out earlier on from the Chinese Room, who did some really incredible games like Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, Dear Esther, you know, and they usually work with a composer whom I absolutely adore. And they made an actual horror game this year, and it is so good. It is so incredible. It took my top 5 easy. It's really good. And a couple other great games came out too, like that at honorable mentions, but that's definitely my top 5 in terms of games this year. So
that is the best song of the year, the best new song of the year, the Cure End Song. For me, I think it is.
So I'm glad you brought that up, buddy.
I think it is. I think it could be my favorite song.
I created a top 10 albums of the year as well.
Nice. Yeah.
And The Cure is number 2.
Okay.
So here's the thing with The Cure's Songs of a Lost World. It's number 2, but really it's probably tied with number 1 because for me, I am of two minds when it comes to the music I enjoy it. I usually like something that's more aggressive. Mm-hmm. And then I also have the side of me that's more into like sort of the more gothy, more quiet music. And The Cure obviously takes that top spot. But my favorite album of the year was from an artist called Ishan, who used to be in a band called Emperor. And he had put out a double album this year of like basically like strange progressive black metal and then like an orchestral side to that album as well. And that was really my number 1. But when I really think about it, they're tied because like I always have a foot in both worlds.
Yeah.
Like I always have to have like some of the more morose, quiet side of what I enjoy, and then the more heavier side of what I enjoy. And so it really is between Ishan and The Cure's Songs of the Lost World. And yes, to answer your question, I think off of that album, End Song would be
definitely
the song of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a great album, great song, great return from a band that I've loved for so many years that I expected to like hopefully a handful of the songs on the album.
Yeah.
But for it to, and now I can conclusively say it is my second favorite Cure album.
I mean, I'm not even what I would class as a Cure fan. It's like I liked Burn from The Crow, and it was great because it reminded me of The Crow, and I liked the song. And then we saw them headlining Glastonbury on TV. We didn't go there a few years ago, and I'm like, that's a really good concert. That's some really good. I like some of their stuff. I've never heard half of the stuff that they've played because it wasn't the singles that were played to death in the 80s. And so I've become a Cure fan, and it's like, Annette's the huge Cure fan. So I'm like, hey, there's a live stream and a new one. We'll sit down and watch it. Oh my God, this is awesome. And then when End Song was on, we were like, please let this song just carry on for another 10 minutes. It's great.
Yeah. The Cure, they know how to write really long, but really great songs that keep you invested. You know, and they were probably the first band, except for maybe Iron Maiden when I was a kid, but they were probably the first band that I listened to where, like, you know, it was perfectly normal to have 8-10 minute songs, you know, or 8 or 10 minute songs, whatever, which for me at the time was very long. Now it's like I look at the music I write, that's all, you know,
it's like 11, 12 minutes.
8 minutes is like on the short side. You know, we're usually getting up there, and it's like, I learned that from The Cure. I learned it from watching you, Robert. So
it's a good thing, though. It's like I also listened to the new Linkin Park album, From Zero.
Did you like it?
I've liked Linkin Park over the years, and then they were doing a live stream. I'm like, okay, I'm glad they're back. I'm happy those guys are coming back. Let them earn a living. Blah blah blah.
Sure.
I'm not one of these. Oh, Chester's not around, so therefore the other guys shouldn't work. It's like crazy mentality. And then when Emily Armstrong came on, I'm like, she's actually really good. She sounds the foundations of the Chester Bennington Linkin Park era there, but she's also herself, and I thought she did a great job. And then when the album came out, I really liked the album, but the thing I don't like about it is you're like, oh, this is a good song, oh, it's finished. Oh, it's finished, because they're all like 2.5 minutes. And I've become accustomed, it's probably your fault, I've become accustomed, yours and Robert Smith's fault, to these like building songs and tracks that I can spend time with rather than what feel like trailers for longer songs. So I kind of wish Linkin Park would do longer ones. 2.5 minutes is not, for me anyway.
It's like the curse of pop music, right? You know, and I don't mean to like sort of denigrate them, but I mean, they're a pop band because they're popular music. So it's like, you know, you can call them metal, you can call them rock or whatever, but like they are pop music. So, you know, they have a lot of people who produce and massage and handle and make sure everything they do is packaged within that format so that it can, you know, I don't think radio play is the right word, but be digestible for people with short attention spans, basically. So like they write these good songs that, like, you know, we get in, we get out, and we hit you with the next one. And
it's like, no, because their album's 38 minutes long, and you're like, it's 10 or 11 tracks, and you're
that's
like,
nothing.
What?
Yeah, and that album probably cost
2 Chris tracks.
That album probably cost like millions to make too. You know, and it's just like, you know, it's crazy to me how much money gets done.
And it's a good album, but it's just like,
I'm sure.
It's just too short. It's like, no, I don't want to watch it. You know, I'm not going to listen to it a lot, but I liked it. But The Cure was the best album I think I've heard this year. So
I won't go through every album I love this year. I'm going to mention my top 5 just because I'm looking at the list, and it's so crazy how different the top 5 is. I mentioned the Ishan, which is, again, is more progressive, strange black metal. Not just black metal, but it's all over the place. The Cure, Songs of the Lost World. Rosetta Stone, which is an English goth band. Really, it's just one guy now that I've loved since I was very young. My favorite goth artist of all time. He, after like 5 years, I mean, he really didn't put out anything for years. And then in 2000, I think it was 19 or 18 or 20, somewhere, I mean 19 or 20, I think he put out his first record in like over a decade. I'm like, oh my God, he's back, this is amazing. And it was really just music he repackaged from another project he was doing and called it Rosetta Stone. But then like a year later, he put out an actual new album, and then he didn't do anything for years. And then this year he put out a new album called Under the Weather, which is I guess him making fun of people who during the pandemic they would just say they were under the weather. I'm not really sick. There's not really a pandemic. I just have a cold. I just have the sniffles. But it's a great record. Another band that hasn't put anything out in like 5 years that I absolutely adore, called Federale. They put out a new record this year called Reverb and Seduction, which is, Federale kind of are like this. They started off as almost like a band that would score like old spaghetti westerns that don't exist.
Okay.
Kind of like when you listen to synthwave music now, you're like, oh, this sounds like it would be from a movie from the 80s, but that movie doesn't exist. Federale are that band, but they gradually sort of morphed into more of a actual like kind of rock band with like these sort of Western undertones, really amazing, and a lot of like Italian cinema undertones. Just incredible band, and they put out a new record this year that worked out really well. Loved it. And then Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats, which is a psychedelic rock band that decided they were going to go full on giallo and put out a score for a giallo film that doesn't exist.
It's a lot of this. Let's score a movie that's not real.
Right. But when you listen to it and there's like whole scenes from this movie that are playing, this movie isn't real. It's called Nell Ora Blue. And oh my God, it's so good. I listen to it like every week. It's so good. And like then there's like little bits of them sort of being their normal sort of like psychedelic rock selves. But it sounds like if you watch a lot of those old Dario Argento movies, it sounds like score that would be in one of those movies. Like it is so dead on. So yeah, that's like my top 5. Quite a eclectic mix, but some amazing music this year. I had a tough time picking a top 10 this year. There was so much good music that came out. So.
It's been a good year for everything, hasn't it? Games, movies, TV. You don't watch too much TV, but there's been a whole bunch of decent TV stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, you look on the internet and people are grumpy about everything. So.
And one of the things people seem to be grumpy about a lot, another thing it was a good year for was 4K re-releases. There are a lot of great movies that got a great 4K releases. Maniac, The Raid, Rosemary's Baby, Elm Street, The Crow, Offspring, The Woman combo from Arrow. Like I said, Trick or Treat, Exorcist, Baby Blood, a French movie I freaking love. All these movies got 4K releases, but then you just see people like bitching about the 4K releases online. Like, oh, it looks like crap. I can't believe they did this.
Does it? Oh, really? It's like,
I'm sorry. I want to be able to see the movie I'm watching, and I will gladly take a 4K re-release of Nightmare on Elm Street that, you can say, oh, it doesn't look natural. Fuck off. It's a movie.
It's a movie about Freddy Krueger. What do you mean natural? It's just,
it doesn't look real life.
The more time I spend online, the more time I want to go, do you know what? I'm just going to speak to who I know. And just put messages out for strangers to read, not necessarily to respond to. It's just they're crazy people. It's a crazy world, I think.
It is, man. And that's why I'm glad we're able to have these conversations and chat about the stuff we love, especially in the midst of a lot of life upheaval. Like, you're moving right now. It's nice just to kind of take a break from that. And talk about
this is the first time I've stopped for a couple of hours in like a week. So it's been really nice to sort of just sit and not have to lug boxes around and unplumb washing machines and throw. I don't know how many HDMI cables I own, but I think it's a lot because it fills a box.
Oh my gosh.
So they're all waiting at the other end. So tomorrow another van shows up, the remainder of the stuff gets thrown in it, and then I think we're done. I think we'll be in the new house tomorrow night, and then I'll come back to this one next week just to vacuum it up and throw any rubbish out I need to, and then it's
amazing.
And then it's down to unboxing at the other end and setting up my office and gig room and all that sort of stuff. So it should be up and running by the 10th of January. Everything should be built. Everything should be done because I won't be distracted by seeing what people have eaten for lunch on Facebook or whatever it is. But I'm still going to have access to email. I've still got limited access to social media accounts. I'm very happy that Aenorex is now on pretty much every social media account. Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, X, Facebook, YouTube. So you're back. You're back on the social media. You're back on the social media things, which is good.
Well, I have to thank you for your assistance with that, sir.
And one of the products I mentioned at the beginning, I was filling up my iPod with podcasts. I'm very excited as well because it looks like Wes and Lydia have done an episode on The Changeling.
Yeah.
I fucking love that film. If there's a top 10 list of my creepy films that I love, The Changeling is definitely on it. I love that movie, so I'm looking forward to listening to them talking about one of my favorite films.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, they did a good job with that one. And if I mean, Lydia was still upstairs when I flew downstairs and realized I was 20 minutes late.
Yeah.
So, but they're actually recording today too, and I think they're doing an episode on the Spanish film The Influence, based on the Ramsey Campbell book. And The Influence is a cool occult possession horror film. Came out a couple years ago on Netflix, and we were talking about kind of swapping out streamers. So she recently grabbed Netflix just so she could rewatch that movie, because that's the only way you can watch the movie. It's nowhere else, at least not here. And it's a Netflix thing, so there's no Blu-ray or DVD, right? They don't do that. Yeah. So for the most part. So but yeah, so looking forward to hearing them talk about that, because that's a cool film. So
do you want my funny Ramsey Campbell story?
Sure, yeah.
So I went to Grimfest a couple of years ago, where I met Mick Garris and Neil Marshall and Corin Hardy and all of them. And Ramsey Campbell was there, and he was hosting a panel with all these legends on. And he was there, and I met him, and I chatted with him, and I got a signature of his on a poster and stuff like that.
That's incredible.
And then he popped up as people you may know on Facebook. And we have like loads of mutual friends, so like Mick Garris and all these people. I'm like, oh, send Ramsey a friend request, because I publicize stuff, and that's fine. So I sent a friend request. And like a few days later, I got a private message from Ramsey, and he's like, hello, do we know each other? And I said, well, we're not like friends or anything, but we met at Grimfest. I was the one filming your panels that you were doing on behalf of Grimfest, and we had a chat, and he signed my poster, and he's like, oh, have you read lots of my books? I said, well, do you know what? I said, one of the things that really, and I do have a lot of books, but I haven't freed the time up to go, no movies, no TV, no games, sit down, read a book. But there's a lot that I really want to read. So I said, well, I haven't yet, but one of my plans for the coming year is to sit down and make more time for reading. He went, well, read some of my books. If you like them, come back and I will accept a friend request.
Wow.
So I'm like, wow. So I'm like, remove request. I'm like, really?
Wow. What a great way to ensure that nobody ever reads your books.
Exactly. It's like, I was perfectly polite. I was like, I hate your books. It's like, I genuinely haven't read one, but I'm going to make some time to nope. All right, balls to you then. It's just weird.
Dude, I wonder what would the minimum amount of books have been in order for him to to accept your request. What if you said, yeah, I've read 4 of your book, and he'd be like, you know what? Read 7 and then come back and talk to me. Like, then you're a fan. Wow, what an absolute cock. That's crazy.
But it's like things like that now. At one point years ago, I would have been quite like put out. How dare this is terrible. Now I genuinely do laugh at it. I'm like, what a dick.
You got it. You got it.
Otherwise,
it's fucking hilarious. Oh my god, that is the best Ramsey Campbell story ever.
Have you seen Cliffhanger?
Yes.
Stallone one. So one of the villains in that is played by a guy called Craig Fairbrass. He's the British one. Put the ball on the net, kick the penalty in. That's him. Mm-hmm. And he's been in a lot of stuff. And I had press access to. I've kind of broken one of my own rules, and you'll work out why in a minute. I had press access to a Comic-Con years ago, and I was loitering around the desk, and then over there, I saw Craig Fairbrass, who I was due to interview that day, I might add, for a film called The Hooligan Factory that he was appearing in, this comedy thing. And I thought, oh, so from like 100 feet, and I put the camera up, I thought, I'm going to get a distance, candid shot of Craig Fairbrass. And he went like this. So I'm like, well, that was bad luck. Right, let me try it again. Okay. And I'm like, that's really bad luck. That doesn't happen twice. And I tried it for a third and final time. I went, what the hell's going on? And he went like this. If you want a photo, you're going to have to pay £25. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? So I walked over and spoke to some of the other cast members who from the same film who knew who I was, who knew all about the from page to screen thing, and they thought I was great. And he's like, no, I don't like people taking pictures of me. I'm like, dude, you're at Comic-Con. I said, I was only sorry about that. I was taking a picture like way over there. I just wanted a candid shot. No, you got to buy one. So I'm like, wow. So I went to the organizers. I'm like, right, I'm loving him. So I went to the organizers and went, can I just ask a question? Press pass hanging around my neck. Went to take a shot 100 foot off. I wasn't intrusive, sticking a camera in his face. Is it normal for them to go like this? He went, no, who did that? I said, Craig, aren't you supposed to be interviewing him later on? I went, well, I was supposed to be. He went, right, come with me. So he went over and he had a word with him, and then he came back and he said, "Oh, Craig just doesn't like people taking pictures of him." I'm like, "But it's to publicize him and his film, and I wouldn't stick a camera in his face. It was from a distance." He went, "Yeah." I said, "Well, tell you what, take him off my interview list." He went, "Do you know, I want to speak to him?" I'm like, "Nope." And so to this day, whenever I get a press release through for a film with him in, I'll still mention his name, but usually they go, "And the amazing, legendary, brilliant actor so-and-so." I'm like, "Don't delete that part." And I just have his name in. It's niggled me that much for like 8 years. I'm like,
funny.
dick. Crazy.
You know, it's like you never know like who you're going to end up working with in any business, and especially when it comes like show business, like you don't want to burn bridges. And even if it's just like being a jerk about somebody taking your photo, and I mean, it's a lie too to say like, well, he doesn't like people taking his photo. Oh no, he doesn't have any problem with people taking his photo. He wants the money for it though.
Yep.
Yeah. Like that's what he has a problem with. So that's funny though. I know we don't like to speak ill of people we've kind of had run into.
But these are all
laughable
things. And yet there's other people we've met, like RJ Mitty, who was in Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
And Annette and I went to meet him, and we met him and got a signed picture. And at the time, Annette's daughter was pregnant, and she wasn't able to go down. But she was a huge Breaking Bad fan. And we said to RJ, because I had the camera running, doing
the son, right?
The son.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, he's cool.
We had the camera running, just filming me walking around. And he said, "Is there any chance you can record like a hello message to Sarah? Because she's up north. She can't come down. She really wanted to meet you." The guy was as nice as pie. "Hi, Sarah." And he was there for like 2-3 minutes talking to the video camera and this. And yet you get other people who are like,
yeah.
Crazy.
I've seen a lot of that kind of behavior at different conventions too, where it's like, I don't usually go to like meet people. I usually go more just to shop for like horror stuff or whatever, and like see what's out there. And it's cool when you see somebody like from a movie like or something. But I've seen the ways some other celebrities are. Some other celebrities are super rock star about it, and you can't get anywhere near them unless you pay the $400 VIP, super duper pass or whatever. And then other people, it's like, I remember seeing Kane Hodder just try to take a piss in a go to the washroom and take a pee. And like Kane Hodder can't go anywhere without people wanting a photo, without wanting an autograph. And the man is as nice as they come. And he, even though he has a table set up where people can come and pay $35 to get an autograph and a photo or whatever, like he's not going to tell people no.
No.
He knows these people love him, and they are the reason why he is able to make a living off of conventions alone.
Yeah.
So what's he going to say? No, come to my table. No. Like, he knows every time he gets up to go like stretch his legs or go to the washroom, like he's going to get flocked by people. But it's a difference in how people act. You know what I mean? And Kane Hodder, he doesn't need the entire convention to pay him $35 per autograph. He does just fine, and he seems grateful for the fans he has, right? So anyway.
Yeah. But I just thought once you mentioned Ramsey Campbell, I thought, I'm sharing that story. But
I love it. I love it.
There's lots of weirdness. It's a fun world. If it was,
Yeah.
So what's your plans for the rest of the day then? What are you gonna do?
If Lydia is still recording, I'm gonna work on some music, and then I am gonna be a great adult and go get a haircut. No.
Yeah, I need to get one of them as well. Yeah. It's just like I'm starting to get the old Mel Gibson Lethal Weapon 1 sort of this hair's too long type thing going. But it's winter over here, so I can get away with it. But yeah.
But that's it, man. Yeah, not doing too much. I busy at work, so I'm happy I can just chill this weekend for the most part. So. Yeah. So how about yourself? What are you getting up to?
I've got a few bits and pieces to box up, but nothing. Today was the most exhausting day ever, so tomorrow isn't going to be as much.
Awesome.
So I'll do some bits, but I'll get this edited and get it preloaded onto the podcasting feeds, ready for my internet darkness. But I am still around on email for anybody and yourself. Social media limited and whatnot. I figure I'll just switch my data on for like half an hour a day and go done.
There you go.
And then other than that, just catch up on some video gaming and listening to your music, listening to Lydia's Dead Air podcast and stuff like that. So,
well, I wish you an amazing month off the internet, and looking forward to our next chat. Hopefully, the beginning of the year ish.
Yep.
Where we can I can see your new digs and talk about maybe some of the films we've gotten to watch in the meantime. And man, just good luck with the move, man.
And thanks for jumping on these. I've really enjoyed. I enjoyed BTK, and then when BTK went away, it's like, You know, so I like the fact that this is kind of like for me, it's a revisit to BTK because you know you're here. Never mind Luke. Luke can whatever.
Luke's great. Luke's great. But yeah, it is cool. It's kind of like the BTK spiritual successor because it's all about the passion for film, right? So, and even though BTK is no longer with us, sadly, it's still get to kind of talk about this stuff with you. So it's super cool, man. Now we don't do it through emails much anymore. Now we can do it in person, or at least through the internet. So.
Exactly. But no, you take care, Chris.
You too, bud.
Thanks for this, and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, man. Talk soon.
Okay. Take care.
Later. Bye.
Bye.